You may be seated. Masithandazeni. Let us pray. Almighty God, we have called us to govern this province. We ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and promote the interests of our people. On Magdege God, ons bid dat u gedrende, ons vergadering, ons die nodige wijsheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikelela ilizwe lethu nabantu balo, umisele ukulunga kwiphondo lethu. Nkosi, sikelela iAfrika, gcina abantwana bayo, khokhela Nkosi inkokheli zayo. Yinike uxolo iAfrika. All this we beg in your most holy name. Amen. Honorable members, I would like to business of the day. Mr. Secretary. Honorable Dagmo.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier, Honorable leaders of political parties and members of the legislature, leaders of local government, religious and community leaders, special invited guests within the gallery, comrades and friends. A few months ago, all of us as members of this House made a solemn oath or an affirmation. I swear that I will be faithful to the Republic of South Africa and the province of the Western Cape and will obey, respect and uphold the national constitution, the provincial constitution and all other laws of the Republic. And I solemnly promise to perform my function as a member of this provincial parliament to the best of my ability. So help me God. We promise to uphold the national and provincial constitution and respect all laws that govern our country and province. I believe, Speaker, that this oath is a good place to start as we participate in this debate. As we do so, we should also remember the words of Comrade Nelson Mandela when he addressed the crowd on the Grand Parade on the 9th of May, 1994, as the President-elect of the Republic. He said, and I quote, "You, the people, have mandated us to change South Africa from a country in which the majority lived with little hope to one in which they can live and work with dignity, with a sense of self-esteem and confidence in the future. This needs unity of purpose, it needs unity in action, it requires us all to work together to bring an end to division, an end to suspicion, and to build a nation united in our diversity," close quote. I believe also that the words of Oliver Tambo are also relevant as we seek to make sense of our role as the 42 members of this House in confronting the challenges the people of our province face. Speaking from the vantage point as the commander of the forces fighting to liberate our country from apartheid colonialism and anticipating what would follow victory, Oliver Tambo said, and I quote, "Comrades, you might think it is very difficult to wage a liberation struggle. Wait until you are in power. I might be dead by then. At that stage, you will realize that it is actually more difficult to keep the power than to wage a liberation war. People will be expecting a lot of services from you. You will have to satisfy the various demands of the masses of our people." What he also said was particularly apposite to our situation, not only as the official opposition, but also the other opposition parties represented here, the Economic Freedom Fighters, GOOD, the Freedom Front Plus, the ACDP and Al-Jamaa, but also to those members on the opposite side of the House who are charged with the responsibility of governing this province. Oliver Tambo said once more, and I quote, In the process, be prepared to learn from other people's revolutions. Learn from the enemy also. The enemy is not necessarily doing everything wrongly. You may take his right tactics and use them to your advantage. At the same time, avoid repeating the enemy's mistakes. This quote actually makes me think of the contribution made by Mr. Michael Louis, an MPL from the ACDP then, who was part of the committee of this House that drafted and adopted the provincial constitution which we have sworn to uphold. It was he and the ACDP who fought hard for the inclusion of 2 commissioners within the constitution, the Environmental and the Children's Commissioner. Section 71(1) of the provincial constitution states, there is a provincial commissioner for the environment. Section 78(1) states, there is a provincial commissioner for children. It is a sad day, Speaker, that 10 years after the promise made by the Democratic Alliance in this House that a children's commissioner would be appointed, that we do not have one. In essence, the DA has defied the provisions of both the national and the provincial constitution for over 10 years. They are what some would describe as constitutional delinquents. Now more than ever, we need, Speaker, these commissioners. Our province has incredible natural endowments. We need to balance economic development with the sustainable utilization of our resources. It is clear to us that the DA does not want these commissions to see the light of day. Today, we say as the opposition, so far and no further. We have all sworn an oath to the Constitution. It is illegal and unconstitutional for these institutions.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition, will you please take your seat? There's a point of order. What's your point of order, Honorable Member?
Honourable Speaker, I'm rising because the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is deliberately misleading the House, because as a member of
What order is that?
that is Rule 54, because the Honourable Leader of the Opposition was a member of the committee which took that took a decision and a resolution for it to stand over to the next Parliament. So the member cannot now come and mislead the House, and he was party to a decision that was taken.
Thank you, Honorable Mitchell. Let us allow Honorable the Leader of the Opposition to proceed. Fortunately, he's still on the floor. He may defend himself. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. I trust that the table will check the time.
Yeah.
The reality is, as we speak on this day, there is no Children's Commissioner, there is no Environmental Commissioner. That is the reality. The state of our province, like other provinces, is one where, despite commendable gains in providing basic services to our people, the ravages of unemployment, inequality, poverty, crime, violence and corruption are part of the toxic mix which makes life for the majority very difficult to live. Add to these pathologies the scourge of domestic violence, racism, patriarchy and discrimination on the grounds of sexual preference. The enormity of the task facing us is apparent. It is our collective responsibility to take on this challenge, every one of us. Whether you sit on this side of the House or on the opposite benches, we know these challenges. The real issue facing us, Speaker, is this: what is to be done to confront inequality, unemployment, poverty, violence, crime and corruption, patriarchy and discrimination? The facts are staring us in the face. The reality is lived. Honourable Speaker, it is clear that the glib articulation of an open, equal opportunity society by the Premier and his party, the DA, does not provide an answer to this question. It talks of jobs, but never mentions ownership of the economy. It talks of education and skills, but says nothing about the need for redress for schools still impacted upon by the brutal legacy of apartheid education. It talks of unity, but ignores the demon of racism, as if the word racism is a swear word, never to be mentioned in the same breath as an equal opportunity society. It mouths platitudes about reversing apartheid spatial planning, but says nothing about the fact that for the last 10 years, not a single integrated housing development in the inner city and our rural towns has seen the light of day. The equal opportunity mantra obscures the blatant preservation of privilege by selling a prime public asset, the Tafelberg School in Sea Point, ideally suited for social housing, and identified by the Provincial Department of Housing's own admission to private interest. The question is, which opportunities and for whom, we should ask. The Equal Opportunity Society provides cover for the blatant attempt in the DA 2019 manifesto to allow employers to opt out of the minimum wage agreement of 20 Rand an hour, plus minus 3,500 Rand a month, and pay 1,800 Rand per month, the same amount as an old age pension. Honourable members, it is there for all to see on page 12 of this DA manifesto, known quite ironically as the Manifesto for Change. So what has to be done when the very vision of the DA as the ruling party of this province is doomed to fail the majority of our people who are working class and poor and excluded from meaningful participation and ownership of this economy? What it means, firstly, is that the people of this province have to be active, engaged, and willing to struggle for real people's power to change their lived reality. It means communities have to intensify the struggle for socio-economic transformation in every corner of this province. This needs to be done with organization, with discipline, without violence, and in unity across the party political divide. Such mobilization must not lapse into populism. We must place the people's daily struggles at the center of all of our efforts. What it means, secondly, is that we as the ANC shall secure the active and ongoing support from our President and each and every national government minister to grow this province together and to share its wealth. We will secure national investment and support as we work night and day to address the needs of all of our communities. But thirdly, Honourable Speaker, it also means seeking out those issues around which we can cooperate and work together. There are many international examples of how nations, in order to resolve fundamental challenges facing them in a war or post-war situation or to overcome natural disasters, have formed united fronts to confront a common enemy or a common challenge. As Oliver Tambo said, we should never reject ideas because they come from those we regard as the enemy or as the opposition. Given the scale of challenges we face, we in fact do not have a choice. We have to and must work together. We know that local elections are looming. We know that there's a real temptation to conduct ourselves in a way which always places party interests first. The time has arrived for a new approach in the Western Cape. As the new dawn represents a moment of opportunity and hope under the leadership of President Ramaphosa, so too must this moment in our province not be lost. We cannot simply do more of the same and expect different results. When we take decisions on narrow party political lines, we face delaying the resolution of problems, and ultimately it is our people, especially the poor, that suffer. There are two examples from the Premier's speech which demonstrated the danger of putting the narrow interests of the DA first. We cannot afford a protracted intergovernmental dispute about rail, and we cannot afford the negative impact of the DA's pipe dream of a provincial police service. On the one hand, the Premier, MEC Fritz, the department, attended a crime summit in Paarl on 14th of July with the national government, with community members who are engaged in the fight against crime under the theme, building a united front against crime. And yet, at the same time, the DA has declared an intergovernmental dispute and is still pursuing the establishment of a provincial police service. Honourable Member, our Chief Whip Pat Lacker, will say more about community safety when she speaks, but clearly we need to place on record that our province is not unfairly discriminated against when it comes to police resources. The SAPS report of 2018 demonstrates that in fact the police population ratio in this province is better than a number of other provinces. But if we are honest, the real issue is the failure to deploy the police resources that we do have to the areas most ravaged by crime, violence and gangsterism. This House also needs to unite around the appointment of a permanent provincial police commissioner with experience and knowledge of our communities. And I appeal to Premier Winde to call to order those in his party who seek to discredit potential candidates who may have a history within the liberation movement. Secondly, the call for clear and time-bound process to deploy existing police resources, the end of the intergovernmental dispute about police resources, the ending of internal conflict within our community police fora and neighbourhood watches, supporting the integrated approach to fighting crime and the causes of crime. While we support the deployment of the SANDF to our province...
Honourable, the Leader of the Opposition, will you please take your seat? There is a point of order behind you. What's your point of order, Chief Whip?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I request the members from the other side to tone down their voice? We can hardly hear what Honourable is saying.
All right. Thank you, Honourable Lecker. Honourable members, that is simply a request, and I hope that it will be carried. Honorable Dagmo, please proceed, sir.
Thank you. We believe the Army is making a difference in stabilizing our communities right now. However, we must now focus on getting the integrated approach working, once again placing the people and our communities first in all that we do. The Premier's speech was in fact the clearest admission that the DA has, for the last 10 years, in fact abandoned the integrated approach to community safety. As the ANC, we will support the coordination proposed by the Department of the Premier and make sure that all our ANC shadow MECs play their role in this House, on the standing committees, in the community and on our streets. At the same time, we will bring what we as the ANC can offer, direct access to our President and the National Cabinet. We will also bring what we have, the active support and mobilization of our communities on the ground. In this regard, we would like to inform this House that our shadow ANC MEC for Community Safety, Honourable Kama, will bring a proposal to this House for a pilot project on the establishment of street committees using the M plan used by Comrade Nelson Mandela. As the opposition, we can call on all parties to support our call on the DA to withdraw the intergovernmental dispute and drop the campaign for a provincial police service. We know it's a non-starter. It's not going to happen. We are greatly concerned at the second example, the call for a provincial rail service. I urge the Premier to actually read the draft white paper on public transport. There is a reference to a metropolitan transport authority, not a provincial rails. For now, we need to work together in all spheres to fix Metro Rail. A party political posture for a provincial rail service is a sideshow. We have seen cooperation between all spheres of government to recruit, train and deploy rail safety officers. Honourable Speaker, many of the pathologies we face in our province can be traced back to the brutal legacy of colonial dispossession, the evil system of apartheid spatial planning. In our province, group areas removals in Cape Town and our rural towns created emotional and economic scars that live with us today. The Oudtshoorn municipality, for example, then prided themselves in being the first municipality to enforce group areas. Land, houses and thriving businesses were taken from those classified as African, coloured and Indian. It was an unspeakable crime against humanity. As the ANC, we are driving land restitution and land redistribution. Central to this must be concrete steps to integrate Cape Town and all our rural towns. We have noted Premier Windy's comment, and I quote, Western Cape government will look to match the extent of any national government-owned land released to be used for the development of housing. We do not believe that this has been thought through. Rather, it is a political posturing and appears to be an excuse not to immediately release well-located provincial and municipal land for integrated human settlements. However, we do fully support the use of all public land for socio-economic purposes. Let's meet urgently and talk about this and find a practical way forward. As the ANC, we propose that each municipality must complete a transparent, accessible land audit of all national, provincial, municipal and state-owned enterprise properties. This to include both land and buildings. And such audit must also look at well-located land which can advance these particular purposes. This reminds me of another innovative idea made many years ago by Honourable Peter Murray. I'm not sure if he's in the House today. He is in the House. He had proposed then that Cape Town
Honourable Dagmo, may I please ask you to wrap up?
Okay,
please.
I'm going to, but I've been timing myself and I actually feel I've been prejudiced by the interruptions here. But I want to say that Honourable Mayor Murray had proposed that Cape Town literally needs a new city within a city. He proposed looking at the land between Blaauberg and Atlantis. While we believe that much more needs to be done to integrate and densify our city and towns using, for example, underutilized school land to house teachers, we need to find out what Honourable Murray's current thinking is on this matter. And to conclude, we then say that in regard to the land audits, we need proposals to release such land via leasehold for human settlements, social development. And as the ANC, we will oppose any attempt to invade land illegally, and all this must happen within the framework of the law. We are committed, the last sentence, to be vigilant.
No. Thank you.
Constructive.
Your time is up, sir.
Opposition.
Your time is up. Thank you. Thank you. Did you see it he's trying all these overtures? Thank you, Honourable Member. You've done very well. May I request the Minister of Transport and Public Works, Honorable Matekizela.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier, Leader of the Official Opposition and all other parties present, Cabinet colleagues, members of the Provincial Legislature, invited guests and people of my beloved province. Let me start by thanking Premier Windy for delivering a well-balanced State of the Province address. Premier was very honest about our state of the province. He did not only speak about our successes, but was also honest and spot on about the challenges that we continue to face as the province of the Western Cape. In his address, the Premier recommitted to our 2009 vision of realizing an open opportunity society for all, so that the residents of the province can use their freedom to live the lives they value. Mr. Speaker, the Premier also raised the matter of the development of a highway patrol as part of our provincial traffic mandate. Safety on our roads has steadily been improving. But that, Mr. Speaker, cannot substitute the importance of behavior of our drivers, despite a number of measures that we are putting in place. Bringing the provincial traffic service back into the transport family 5 years ago has been bearing fruit. The road that was 29.25 per 100,000 population in 2010, and just after this administration came into power and took this strategic decision, by last year, the death rate had been reduced to 20 per 100,000 population. This is a reduction of more than 30%, Mr. Speaker. However, colleagues, at the same time, as we've made these strides forward, the communities our officers have served so well on the roads have been terrorized and crippled by criminals. The murder rate in our province jumped from 43.3 per 100,000 in 2009-10 to 57 per 100,000 population in 2018-19. Now, again, this is an increase of more than 30%. It is well known that effective road policing makes the life of criminals far harder. For example, strict control of the highways can make it impossible to conduct criminal operations like the drug smuggling that is the lifeblood of the gangs tearing apart communities on the Cape Flats. As a first step to show our commitment to taking a leading role in the fight against crime, I can confirm to the South that the Department of Transport and Public Works has begun the process of redeveloping the provincial traffic service into a provincial highway patrol. One of the offers during our campaign was the provincialization of rail transport, because I strongly believe, Mr. Speaker, that we can do much better than PRASA, and I'm very surprised that Member Doug Moore does not agree with this, because this is a call that was also supported by Gauteng Premier David Makura. The problem in our trains and public transport in general have a crippling effect in our economy. And I've already met with the National Minister of Transport to talk about this. Mr. Mbalula and I agree with Member Doug Moore that for us to be able to come with solutions on this matter, we really need to work together and strengthen our intergovernmental relations. And that is why both Minister Mbalula and I agree that fixing transport will be our #1 priority, particularly rail transport. I'm saying it is our priority because both spheres need to work collaboratively to make sure that we do that, Mr. Speaker, not something that we can do alone or the national government that they can do alone. The situation is further complicated by a long history of poor management decisions and corruption within PRASA itself, which is something that the minister lamented on when we had our MINMEC recently. Some of these are currently in various courts. The Western Cape government has already made significant contribution to improving safety and security on the commuter rail system. In partnership with the City of Cape Town and PRASA, the province established the Rail Enforcement Unit, REU, whose successes have been well documented in the media. This has come at a cost of about 16 million rands a year, and we think it is worth it. The contract was extended from 1 July to a further 12 months. We will need to work very closely together and avoid at all costs politicizing the matter, as this does not help our commuters, as I keep on emphasizing. Mr. Speaker, the state of our country is seriously concerning, and the fiscal challenges will have a massive impact on our priorities as the province, but not only as the province, but as a country as a whole. That is why it is imperative to find ways to augment our allocation by raising our own revenue through various means. We must balance the need for strategic use of our property. We must use some of it to address spatial transformation. I agree with Member Dagmore. With Conradi Better Living Model underway, we now must move to Two Rivers Urban Park, or TRAP, Helen Bowden, Woodstock, and Salt Riverside. And we must also challenge the National Minister of Public Works to release some of the pieces of land that she fought for when she was the mayor. But we must also make it very clear, Mr. Speaker. We must make it very clear, Mr. Speaker, that some parcels of land that are not necessarily ideal for this particular goal must be sold in order to raise more revenue. Because let us be clear here. If you look at the economic situation in South Africa, which is not about to get better, we'll end up not being able to finance the commitments that we are making in this House and also in other provinces, because the fiscus will continue to shrink. And therefore, we must be realistic when we're having this debate and stop politicizing it. It's interesting to see the level of hypocrisy from the ANC government. Now, a lot of noise was made, and the ANC again was based on manufactured outrage on selling the Tafelberg, which is what Member Dagmore spoke about. Now, this is a site that is only 1 hectare. We're talking about the site that is only 1 hectare here. Yet last week, Mr. Speaker, the Department of Infrastructure and Public Works nationally published 25 pieces of land that are advertised to be sold. 17 of those are in District 6. Now, the only reason why that decision was reversed is because of the outcry from the people of District 6, which then revealed the hypocrisy from the ANC. Because personally, I do not disagree with the view that says, let us look at certain pieces of land that cannot be used for housing development, for example, and let's see how we use them to augment the financial challenges that we have. So the national department is doing it, the national government is doing it, yes, yet when we are doing it, it's an outcry. Mr. Speaker, I also want to deal with factual inaccuracies that are coming from Member Heron about his track record in the city of Cape Town on 3 aspects. My city and to express housing delivery and inner city development. He's been waxing lyrical about these matters as his justification to leave the party and give the impression that he was the best performer. Now, immediately after my appointment as the Minister of Transport and Public Works, Mr. Speaker, I had to deal with my city debacle. The contract between 3 parties, which is Geldon Aerobus Services, Route 6, and Codeta, which was due for renewal at the end of June, was not renewed. And the main reason for that is because there are serious concerns raised by Codeta and have now taken the city to court. But what I found more shocking, Mr. Speaker, was the fact that under Member Heron, the service level agreement, which was a condition, and I need to repeat this was a condition precedent to the implementation of that contract, was never renewed or was never signed. Now, when I raised this matter with the standing committee last week, he called that a red herring, and I found that very surprising. Yes. He called it a red herring, and I found it very surprising, because if, as someone who was in charge of that department, he should have known that that contract was invalid unless that SLA was signed. And clearly he didn't know that. And he also considered that he did not know that this LAA was never signed. Now, during the previous mayor's tenure, the city's housing department was broken morally and eventually broken down. Its capacity was stripped, which led to dismal delivery record in both USDG and Human Settlement Development Grant. I must add that even the delivery that the city managed to do was due to my previous department taking charge of some of the projects and the procurement because that department was broken. So he went further to say exactly 2 years ago, in then capacity as the City of Cape Town, he initiated inner city developments. I can tell you now, Mr. Speaker, that almost all the projects that were initiated by Member Heron in the inner city were halted by court. All of them.
Honorable Minister, you
So-
need to wrap up.
I do want to wrap up by saying that another issue, Mr. Speaker, that we are dealing with together with National Department is Go George. And I'm happy that after the meeting that I had with the National Ministry and the National Department today, we will be going to George next week so that we can roll out the next phase.
Thank you, Honorable
very
Minister. Thank you. Now I recognize Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you, Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it was great pleasure and excitement that I participate in the first debate of the 6th Parliament. The people of the Western Cape gave a clear mandate for the DA-led government to continue governing and building on the foundation laid by the previous 2 administrations under the leadership of the greatest Premier South Africa's ever had, Ms. Helen Nontsha-Pozilla. The 6th Parliament owes a great debt of gratitude to the 5th administration for a foundation of good governance and accountability, and for that we have to thank them. Despite the size of the Western Cape Parliament and its administration, within our limited means, we set high targets and meet them to become the best parliament in South Africa. Now, Speaker, the wind of change is blowing through the Western Cape and seeks to enhance performance by taking government to the people by blowing fruits of opportunities throughout the province. This, Speaker, has been the first order of business for this government. Throughout the election campaign, we have seen the excellent work done by the Western Cape government, but we also saw opportunities where this government can improve. The people told us throughout this campaign that they want to see more of us. They want accelerated government delivery, and they want more programs in this community. This government will not be deaf to the plight of the people. Hence, I was pleased to see that the Premier, his executive, and his head of department visited places in the Western Cape on a bus showcasing effectivity and efficiency. It will be up to us as members of this Parliament to follow suit in our oversight mandate. Therefore, as chairperson of the Premier and Constitutional Mandate, I will at our first committee suggest to the members of this legislature a program of action that will take more of us to the most furthest part of this province. We need to be that extra pair of eyes that the public needs, because the youth not only battles to find employment, but their unemployment is a major setback for skills development, ironically required for employment. But allow me to consider our successes in this regard. Our apprenticeship game changer seeks to address the skill shortages directly, and the Premier's advancement of youth on the foundation of the Premier's administration created over 4,000 opportunities for the youth so far. In addition, the rollout of the broadband connectivity of nearly 2,000 server sites creates a foundation to an holistic approach to the open opportunity society, and look forward to more year success stories from Premier Windy. Premier Windy, you noted the last while there's been many deaths in our communities, particularly death of children, which bring me to the Children Commissioner. Now, Premier, Member Dagmar was a member of the committee in the last term. Now, during that committee, we made several resolutions, of which Member Dagmar was a member of for 5 years. Now, Member Dagmar was also a member of the executive during the time he was a member of the ANC, and he sat on the desk right in front of me. Now, they've never, during their time, even considered appointment of the Children's Commission. It was never on any committee agenda. We've done it. We had public hearings of which the member was a member of, and that was unanimously adopted by this last Parliament. In fact, Member Dagmar is so predictable, I even printed out the act before I came to this house, knowing how predictable he is. So, because I knew I was going to raise this matter in a different fashion. So at the last Parliament of that committee, we made a recommendation. Let the 6th Parliament deal with this matter, because there was no time to do so. So Member Dagmar, the 6th Parliament at our next committee, and I hope you attend that committee, because if I remember on the last committee in the 5th Parliament, during legislation, you didn't come to the committee. So I hope, as opposed to giving out press releases saying the Children's Commission is not appointed, you're going to come to the committee next week so we can appoint the Children's Commissioner. Because next week,
Order,
Member Dagmore,
order,
we will
honourable
set out the
members.
process to appoint the Children's Commissioner. We'll
Order.
advertise it, we'll put it in the newspapers,
Honourable
and we'll invite you
Mackenzie.
to the interviews, Member Dagmore. So please
Honourable
stop
Mackenzie.
grandstanding, attend committees,
Will
so
you
you can
please-
rightfully inform your constituents
Order,
of
Chair,
what's
order,
happening
Chair,
in
order,
committees.
Chair, order, Chair, order, Chair.
Honorable Mackenzie,
You may have some water.
please. All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Your time is not up, sir. Yes, thank you. It's just that I want to draw your attention that if the speaker draws you to a point of order, please listen to the speaker. But honorable members, please assist me. This is our house, so don't look at me and think I must do magic here, perform some miracles. Let us be orderly and assist the speaker. What is your point of order, Honorable Tagma?
My point of order is through you, Speaker, to ask whether the honourable member. No,
What is- which
whether
rule?
No. To ask whether the honourable member is willing to take a question as to why the Children's Commissioner has not yet been appointed.
Honorable Mackenzie, will you please proceed? Thank you.
If he comes. So, member, and then just on another point, the member Dagmar spoke 2 minutes and 50 seconds on quoting O.R. Tambo and Nelson Mandela. Yet a minute and 75 seconds later, he went into an attack on the Children's Commissioner that's not appointed, of which he sat right here as a member of the executive and did absolutely nothing about it. So it's quite ironic that he wasted 3 minutes quoting 2 great leaders, yet he do the complete opposite a minute and 70 seconds later. So, Premier Windy, this committee that will meet next week
Order.
will unanimously have decided on the Children's Commissioner
Honorable
will map
members.
a clear process.
Honorable Maran, sir, let us please conduct ourselves in a manner that promotes the decorum of this house. Honorable Matigize.
Yes. Can I continue, Chair?
Thank you.
Just monitor my time, please, Speaker.
All right, sir. Your time is safe, sir.
Yes, Speaker, so I agree with Member Dagmar that this commissioner should be appointed speediously. And hence, the first order of business, and I urge to Member Dagmar, and he's not paying attention again, next week, Tuesday, when the committee meet, he must be there. You cannot influence the appointment of people if you're not present, which what he did in the 5th term. Then he arrived here 6 weeks after in the 6th term, and he says something completely different. That's what happens when you're absent from committees. So I agree with the member that the Children's Commissioner is overdue. And we will work with the Chief Whip and the Programming Committee to ensure that this commissioner, the Children's Commissioner, gets appointed as soon as possible. And we will do the same on the Environmental Commissioner and ensure that the legislative processes with regards to the Environmental Commissioner gets appropriated as soon as possible. Speaker, as previously stated, this government will have to do more with less. We just saw this morning the bailout bill or the special appropriations bill
You
of
need to
59
wrap up.
billion then tabled in the National Assembly.
You need to
This
wrap up,
means that
Honourable
this
Member.
government will have to cut more because of blatant corruption that has taken place at National Parliament, and Member Dagmar's walking buddy, the President, who used 400 million rand for his Tumamina campaign. Now we know where the money is going.
None of your business.
Thank you. Who's doing this now? Who's doing that? Honorable Smith, is it you?
What did I do?
Who's doing that noise, funny noise? There's a sound that is very unusual. Maybe it's that mic, yeah.
Mic is by accident on. I was just correcting the member on the CR17 funding. It's nothing to do with this house.
Thank you. May we please not use the mic on such matters because you're not on the speaking list for now. Thank you, Honorable Member. We've got a Minister of Transport, Roads and Public Works. He deals with accidents, so he can help us. Thank you, Honorable Mackenzie. Now I recognize Honorable Kleko.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Makamba Pocha, the Deputy Chairperson of the Province of the EFF Western Cape, the Honorable Members of the Provincial Cabinet and the Legislature, the leadership and members of the EFF present at the gallery, the members of the public, and most of all, our man of the moment, the Honorable Premier of the Western Cape. It is a privilege for the EFF to stand here today to respond to the state of the province you delivered last week. Mr. Premier, thanks to the votes and the voters who voted the EFF in the last elections. If it was not for the hard work and the dedication of the ground forces of the EFF, we wouldn't be here today. Ours is to quickly draw your attention, Mr. Premier, to the dream you happen to share with the president, the former president of the Democratic South Africa, former President Nelson Mandela. A dream of commitment to meeting a deepest and a basic desire of being free from want, from hunger, from deprivation, from ignorance, from suppression and fear. In your quest to make us believe that the Western Cape you aspire to build is indeed the one free from fear, you portray a picture of a dreamland far away from the actual reality. Western Cape is a meta capital of South Africa, and that is the fact you need to wake up from your dreamland and face. We are here, therefore, Mr. Premier, to remind you that you had an opportunity to instill confidence in the people of the Western Cape. In your government of fantasy, such as Mzwanele Velem, a 39-year-old security guard working at Pangela Group from Kayamnandi in Stellenbosch, who was ran over by Johan Stein's Opel Corsa utility buggy in a broad daylight. You further miss an opportunity to condemn the harassment once enjoyed by Esetu Mcinjana, who was unlawfully arrested by the police in Sea Point only because she was at an area designated for certain people. You have failed to take us into confidence that black people will have free access to Clifton Beach and other areas where our people experience fear of harassment by authorities under your province. While dealing with the issue of fear, Mr. Premier, you have missed the boat of condemning your former predecessor, Helen Zille, who recklessly regard black people as refugees in this province, and hence also remarks of black privilege. When addressing challenges of human settlement, Mr. Premier, you deliberately sidestepped the condemnation of evictions of farm dwellers that result in the displacement of the poorest of the poor and the vulnerable members of the society, especially women and children. We all know the reason behind this was aimed at nothing but to avoid to step on the toes of those who are privileged and rich, who funded your election campaign in order for you to be a premier. For this behavior, you project yourself as one not different from Paul Kruger, from Hendrik Verwoerd, from P.W. Botha, from Magnus Malan, from Hennes Grill. Your commonality is the fact that the black lives do not matter to you. In your introduction, Mr. Premier, you have shared with us your wonderful experience of walking through the St. George Street on your way to this parliament. Something, in your view, is equivalent to climbing Mount Kilimanjaro or an Everest. We just wish you should have walked through the streets of Malemaville and Makasgavi in Philippi. Yes, there is a Malemaville, in case you do not know. Valhalla Park and Tsunami in Delft. And then come and share this wonderful journey towards here. Walking in the CBD is no significance nor bearing to anything experienced by our people in the Western Cape. In your speech, Mr. Premier, you have highlighted that you are not prepared to find each other with the national government, regardless how that will impact on the service delivery. Your governing party has previously called for the deployment of the army in the province. Indeed, the army is here. And yet, you want to tell us that you are going to take the people to court. What are you aiming to achieve, the army or the interdict? Now, all of a sudden, you have realized that what EFF has always said about socio-economic challenges that lead criminal activities experienced by our people and communities. You and your party agree that the army is not yet a permanent solution to these challenges, but a socio-economic nature. You have displayed to us how you are willing to work with you are not willing to work with the national government to deal with the building of dams in the province. You also told us you are not willing to cooperate with the Auditor General, only for you to prioritize service delivery. You went on to share with us that you prefer your independent power producers than strengthening ESCOM. These are all signs and symbols that you and your party view Western Cape as a republic inside the republic. We heard from you, Mr. Premier, some fairy tale stories about Lady Abigail from Mitchell's Plain, who has managed to make it in business, in life, in township, coming to you, and not coming to the city center. And according to you, that is an achievement of a lifetime. To our understanding, you again, like many others before you, strongly believe that the place of black people is in the township, in the congested, dangerous Cape Flats where our people are supposed to be. This you have shared as a common achievement with your cheerleaders next to you, who were clapping in triumph, thinking that Mitchell's Plain is the best place to be. In your bedside stories, you told us here in this house, celebrated the business made by informal traders in the streets of the CBD. This to serve as an easy victory of a lifetime to you will grant an opportunity to avoid rentals. This was your say. To us, this is a misrepresentation of facts. As you remind our previous disadvantaged people that they must remain obedient to the streets, whilst the grandchildren of Verwoerd, Lyon, Zille, and many others are enjoying air-conditioned office in our CBD. You have promised to jail our landless people who occupy unused land. A promise we know you will be able to keep. You are the best, and that is the best way to resolve the land dispossession question perpetuated by your forebears to imprison our people. This is our area. This is the area we will have to honor your invitation to the filling of the prisons in the Western Cape. Land shall be occupied, whether you like that or you don't.
Nonde. No, go ngathi se uyigqibezela ngoku.
Okay.
Yeah.
The healthcare services remain a challenge, and piloting 124 service clinic in Grabo will not justify to the masses of our people. And therefore, in the Western Cape, please take us serious, and we will return the.
Thank you very much. Enkosi Mhlekazi. Honorable members, order. Order, honorable members. I now recognize the Minister of Finance, Minister Menier.
Thank you, Speaker. It's obvious to everybody that that honourable member listened to the Premier of the Western Cape's State of the Province address with his mouth and not with his ears. Now, the Leader of the Opposition is quite wrong. We have done more than any other province over the past 10 years to promote economic growth and to create jobs in the Western Cape. We have worked hard to create an enabling environment for the private sector, which has created more than 500,000 jobs in the Western Cape. But despite our hard work, we still have hundreds of thousands of people who are unemployed in the Western Cape. So we have
Honorable
to
members,
find a way.
Sorry, Honorable Minister, please, will you please take your seat? I'm battling to get understanding from members. I think they want to speak at the same time, and it's making it difficult for us to hear you, Honorable Minister. I'm calling on members to please exercise some restraint in this way. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Speaker. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition does seem a little bit excited. Perhaps he could take some comments or rescue remedy. Thank you. As I was saying, Speaker, we have to find a way to give hope to those people, especially young people, who do not have jobs or have given up looking for jobs in the Western Cape, because they deserve to live with dignity, to live with independence, and to live with hope in the Western Cape. But the scale of the challenge is huge, because we are in deep economic trouble in South Africa. And on this, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is exactly right. The scale of the task is enormous. We have stagnant national economic growth, with the economy forecast to grow at an average of about 1.5% over the medium term. We have declining per capita incomes as the population growth rate exceeds the economic growth rate in South Africa. And we have high unemployment, with a staggering 9.9 million people who do not have jobs or who have given up looking for jobs in South Africa. We are in deep economic trouble, not because of national government's failure to implement economic policy, but because of national government's reckless economic policy. We have land expropriation without compensation. We have prescribed assets. We have state banks, and we have sovereign wealth funds, and we have the nationalization of the Reserve Bank in South Africa. We have a president who is supposed to take tough decisions on the economy, but who prefers to call summits, dialogues, and conferences. We have a finance minister who is supposed to be in charge of the macroeconomy, but who is not taken seriously by his own cabinet. And we have a trade and industry minister who is supposed to be in charge of the microeconomy, but who is shackled to the idea of a Soviet-style smokestack economy where workers happily sing the Internationale. That is why investors, including investors who are used to investing in risky emerging markets, are hesitant to invest in South Africa. Which, Speaker, is what happens. It's what happens when the intellectual center of the governing party at national level is not the South African Communist Party, and nor is it COSATU, but it is the economic freedom fighters. That is what happens. Now, Speaker, we have a national government that makes it difficult but not impossible to drive economic growth and job creation in the Western Cape. We will not give up, and we will do what it takes to give hope to people, especially young people who do not have jobs or have given up looking for jobs in the Western Cape. We will create an efficient regulatory environment by supercharging the red tape reduction unit to begin dealing with sector-wide challenges to economic growth, such as the visa regimes, tariffs, port fees, slow planning processes, and licensing regimes which negatively affect economic growth in the Western Cape. We must eliminate obstacles to opening new businesses and growing existing businesses, because with more employers, we can have more employees in the Western Cape. We will strengthen support for sectors of the economy that can contribute to economic growth and job creation. We will support small businesses, especially small businesses in the informal economy, which through support packages like the SME Booster Fund. We will scale up our workplace experience programs to prepare people, especially young people, for the world of work in the Western Cape. And we will build an economy that is resilient by ensuring that it becomes, most importantly, more energy independent, where municipalities can buy power from independent power producers in the Western Cape. We will also build on our successful Cape Town Air Access Program, which has done such great work, launching new routes, expanding existing routes, and growing seat capacity at the Cape Town International Airport. And we look forward to welcoming the inaugural flight of United Airlines, which will fly non-stop from New York to Cape Town on the 16th of December 2019, and which will generate millions of rands in additional tourist spending in the Western Cape. We are particularly pleased to be able to announce here today for the first time that we have reached a new milestone when it comes to the establishment of the Saldanha Bay Industrial Development Zone. We were informed late last week that the application to make the port and key portions of land adjoining the port a customs control area had been approved by the Revenue Service. That means that there will be a less onerous customs procedures for goods moving into, within, and out the industrial development zone to export destinations, and hefty upfront taxes for goods coming into the industrial development zone for repair and maintenance will be waived by the Revenue Service, which will go a long way, we think, to make the Saldanha Bay Industrial Development Zone a destination of choice for the oil and gas sector, and will bring us closer to the vision of creating a world-class oil, gas, and maritime centre right here in the Western Cape. We must acknowledge, however, that stagnant economic growth and declining per capita incomes and staggering levels of unemployment are only part of the problem in South Africa. Because with stagnant economic growth comes collapsing revenue, ballooning fiscal deficits, eye-watering national debt, and a looming sovereign credit ratings downgrade. The triple challenge of unemployment, poverty, and inequality, I promise you, will soon be replaced by a new triple challenge, which will be to regain our investment grade rating from Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch. What we must not forget is that in 2 years' time, national government will be spending 247 billion servicing our national debt, which is a staggering 179 billion more than we will spend in this province here in the Western Cape. Worse, we have zombie state-owned enterprises such as Denel, South African Airways, and worst of all, Eskom, gobbling up billions of rands in bailouts in South Africa. The full horror of national government's mismanagement of the economy, mismanagement of our public finances, and mismanagement of our state-owned enterprises is going to have major implications for provinces in the form of unprecedented budget cuts over the medium term, which risks wiping out service delivery in the provinces across South Africa. To underline the point, we heard a few hours ago in a brief statement from the Finance Minister that we have, and I quote, very serious financial situation on our hands, and that taxpayers will have to fork out an additional 59 billion rand to bail out Eskom. We are not going to simply stand by and allow national government to impose budget cuts on this province to, in effect, bail out national government so that they can bail out zombie state-owned enterprises like Denel, like South African Airways, and like Eskom. What we are going to do in the end is to work hard to give hope to people who do not have jobs or who have given up looking for jobs, and who deserve to live with dignity, with independence, with freedom, and with hope in the Western Cape. I thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Dagmo. Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I'd like to rise on a point of order because I think it is only correct that in regard to the convention of maiden speeches that we don't interject. And I must admit that because I have seen Honourable Mania so often speak in the National Assembly, I forgot that this was in fact his maiden speech today. So I'd like formally to apologise and request that obviously we respect all the maiden speeches today. It's a genuine apology. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable the Leader of the Opposition. Thank you very much, sir. Honourable Mania.
Honourable Speaker, I thank the Honourable Leader of the Opposition for his point, but what he doesn't realise is that I was in fact being uncontroversial.
All right, thank you very much, Honourable Members. Now I recognize Honourable Nkondlo.
Somlom, members, colleagues in this sixth administration, our guests in the gallery, the administrators of both this house and those from the executive that are here, the media, allow me to say Molweni. Let me start off by welcoming Premier Windy and his maiden supper, and his tribute to the foundation father of our democratic nation, Tata Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, and the former president of the African National Congress. As the SOPA places upon us as the citizens of this province and of the nation to use Madiba's life and legacy to reflect on who we are today and who we have been and indeed who we wish to become, let us rise to the occasion, honorables, and be honorable both in thought and in act. Madiba's vision for South Africa is clearly spelled out in the strategic objective of the ANC to create a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous South Africa for all. So the dream he had of a people-centered society is emboldened in that objective, and as such cannot be equated at all with the equal and opportunity society that the Premier and the DA preach for our country. In receiving his Nobel Peace Prize in 1993, Madiba has this to say: "It remains our hope that these two will be blessed with sufficient reason to realize that history will not be denied and that the new society cannot be created by reproducing the repugnant past, however refined or enticingly repackaged." Equal opportunity as a concept is a buzzword to sidestep the thornier political question of the legacy of apartheid. It is like a song with a nice rhythm, but with highly offensive lyrics. It is an oversimplification of a complex social reality of South Africa, of decades of class, race, and gender degradation, and its mischief of quick fix reforms using meritocracy, that is the survival of the fittest, and actually is a sophisticated form of apartheid. The assumption of meritocracy that former Premier Helen Zille would be heard here in this house denouncing employment equity, that she is not bothered whether the cat is black or white. Knowing for a fact, as statistics proves, that merit levels, if one using academic progress, are not evenly distributed. And all accept the high number of young black citizens, including in this province, that are not in employment nor in education or training. So funneling through opportunities, surely using a pure arithmetic, including maths lit, will arrive at the same conclusion that only white cats will be advantaged due to the unchosen inequalities or an unfair advantage from the black cats based on the apartheid engineered positioning. So Premier, you plan to vanquish stubborn apartheid tenets that fashioned racialized opportunities for the white sector of our society by using a racially blind opportunities framework where generations from the black sector of society must compete equally with those that have been given a head start whilst they race against those opportunities with one leg. Please don't play with us. Entrenched white privilege cannot be resolved by just opening the door to non-whites to the same table of whiteness, thus guaranteeing them opportunity to enjoy privilege and whiteness as the epitome of civilization. We cannot allow a system in which an elite hold themselves in power by controlling access to merit via advantaged access to education and advantaged experience and advantaged economic standing. Such is an insult to be equated to Nelson Mandela, who fought to transform a system of domination both in content and in form. We must eliminate all unchosen inequalities as a precondition to leveling the playing field for fair and equitable competition. Madiba said, we must use time wisely and forever realize that the time always is ripe to do right. Ruled by the elite and supposedly schooled and surely not educated, the DA 10-year rule in this province resulted in acts peddled of former Premier's son, which enabled business with the department her mother manages. A colleague MEC, leader of the party, being thrown a 134,000 birthday bash by contractors doing business with his department. And Premier yourself leaving your former office as an MEC of Agriculture without completing your disclosure of financial statements to this House, thus curtailing financial oversight. Instead, embroiling a legal battle with the AG to avoid a negative opinion on your financial management of resources of the Agricultural Department. All this under the claim of DA clean and good governance. Again, the AG has reported a 404% increase of irregular expenditure, totaling to 667 million, as reported in 2017-18, from 165 million from 2016 to 2017. 65 million irregular expenditure was incurred from non-compliance of supply chain management processes from traffic contravention services by the City of Cape Town. What is even outrageous is that the amount is 87% of the original contract value, meaning that the taxpayer had to cough up additional 56.55 million for a service that originally was 8.45 million. The Auditor General exposes 183.5 million underspending by the same City of Cape Town on 2 water projects. Does this include the VNA? Does this include the VNA desalination plant debacle between the City of Cape Town and QFS on allegations of non-compliance to contractual issues and potential scandal of pumping sewage to the sea? Why did you omit these to your SOPA, Premier? Whilst these issues are in the public domain, what do you say about business confidence when an arm of government here in your province is able to bring into disrepute a relationship with business that has entered into a public-private partnership with one arm of the state under your guise? So yes, Premier, you must miss Madiba's leadership qualities and personal strength, as yourself and the Blue Team, by your own admission, are examples of the rare integrity of the mind in today's body politic. The Premier informs us of 100 billion foreign direct investment the province secured since 2009, and the job benefit of this 10-year investment is 500,000 jobs. So it means if one uses MathSlit once again, it costs 200,000 FDI to create one job. Quite pricey, don't you think? Over 120 months, which is 10 years. A long shot, Premier, with your dream of creating a job in each household, I'm sure, within this administration. We must therefore inquire about the investment-led growth, as it is no silver bullet, especially given our uneven realities of our country. Let alone that literature shows a lot of ambiguity in FDI spillovers to host economies or domestic firms, given some conditional factors such as absorptive capacity informed by knowledge and skills, technological gaps, productivity levels, amongst others. So in believing the script of FDI and its job creation effect, more elaborative data must be sought as evidence to show the causality between FDI and the labor market outcomes. Actually, at face value, one would need to use an example of what Honorable MEC Mainir has just spoken about, the Saldanha. That if you look at the situation of Saldanha, which indeed a lot of investment has been placed there to attract a foreign direct investment as a special economic zone, what is the socio-economic condition of that particular region? We're sitting here, and the Blue Book with the Mero tells us that the reality in that region is that the income inequality and its Gini coefficient is 0.60, which is highest in that region. Plus, the highest proportion of low-income household is at 14.1%. And again, Saldanha sits with 82% of formally employed, with skills level being 41% of semi-skilled and 40% low-skilled. Over the past 10 years of DA rule, you omit to tell the public that inequalities in income distribution, as represented by the Gini coefficient of 0.61, closer to 1, is the highest, especially in the City of Cape Town, which is why the UN Habitat has declared Cape Town as the fourth most unequal city. Again, you tell us how you were pained visiting Kleinvlei in Hermanus when you witnessed a mother's tears. And once again, if you look at the socio-economic conditions of Hermanus in particular, it actually resembles almost a similar reality. The situation in almost all these 6 regions in this province demonstrate this particular phenomenon that is in the Blue Book for you to refer. A phenomenon of increased income inequality, large proportion of low-income earners, high grade 12 dropout rates, decreasing metric pass, increase in informal dwellers, increasing indigent, amongst others. Now, this is information that you choose to omit in your SOPA. As the Honorable Madikizela said, you were truthful in speaking about speaking honestly in your SOPA. So you must tell us, Honorable Premier, how is this environment going to be affected by an elitist equal open opportunity investment-led growth? How are people going to be able to indeed move from the kind of situations that they find themselves in? Will they see themselves to the finishing line with a limping or one leg?
Honourable Member.
Ndiyakucebisa, phuma kuloo kona yamakhumsha, ayinamntu uze kule nto kaMandela ye-people-centered society. We congratulate the President Cyril
Finish
Ramaphosa, whose administration launched the Atlantic Special Economic Zone in December 2018, in giving approval for the designation of this SEZ. Cabinet set out two main conditions,
Finish
which I
off,
think
Honourable
the province
Member.
must also consider.
Last minute, if you could just
Last
finish
minute.
off.
Premier, one of the things that is said is the zone must have community and organized labor representatives on the entity's board, and secondly, the local community and SMMEs must be prioritized as part of the job creation and empowerment program. In conclusion, it is important to create a people-centered society of Mandela. We will remain in a journey to commit to work with you, Honorable Premier, guided by the mantra of Nelson Mandela that says, a nation should not be judged by how it treats its highest citizen, but those that are lowest in the hierarchy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Minister Fritz, I see you.
Deputy Speaker, Honourable Premier, Cabinet colleagues, Honourable Leader of the Opposition, and I call you members of the Opposition, not my enemy. You know, we're not enemies. We want to work together. I don't understand what the Leader of the Opposition was doing. Honourable, all our other members of the Opposition, also just saying afternoon. Honourable Maria, I'm saying afternoon. Great, great. Special guests, NGOs, community leaders, citizens of the Western Cape. In Premier Windy's sober speech entitled, "Let's Get to Work, Values, Responsibility and Safety," the Premier clearly highlighted that the safety is a top priority for the Western Cape. Premier Windy is on record for committing this DA-led government to do everything in its power to ensure the safety of every person in this province. And all of us are fully in support of his pledge. My department, fellow cabinet members, and various other departments under the leadership of the Premier are already hard at work making this a reality. As Premier Windy has said, the time for cheap politicking and for playing politics is past. Can I repeat that? Honourable Nkondo, through the deputy. The time for cheap politicking is past. As the provincial government, we have committed ourselves to working in good faith and towards a common set of outcomes with the national government and all its stakeholders. The DA-led Western Cape government, Deputy Speaker, has been calling for the deployment of the South African Defence Force, National Defence Force, for years. Between 2009 and June 2019, approximately 30,000 people were murdered in this province. If this deployment happened sooner, many more would have been spared. I also want to remind this House that the most active opponents of the deployment over the years came from my colleagues, the Honourable Dugmore, who's today, I'm so happy to hear, is supporting it.
Order.
It should be noted that this weekend the death toll was down to 25 people. That is a reduction from 43 the previous weekend and 55 the weekend before that. And it's clear that the deployment, together with the intensified South African police services and Metro Police operations, is having a positive impact. In the short term, it is necessary to stabilize and normalize our most vulnerable communities affected by crime and gangs. For this reason, the South African National Defence Force will be deployed for a minimum of 2 months. It will serve as a ring of steel which enables the South African police services and Metro Police to do their work and to root out gang holding our communities hostage. Of course, Deputy Speaker, this is a long-term solution. This is not a long-term solution. We have never said or suggested that. The deployment of the South African National Defence Force is but a short-term strategy included in a long-term integrated and intergovernmental safety plan in the Western Cape with a eventual kind of outcome of a provincial police force under the leadership of the Premier and a DA-led government. Deputy Speaker, I cannot emphasize enough that the South African National Defence Force and the law enforcement authorities cannot fight the scourge of gangs on their own. Neither is this the sole responsibility of government. Our communities, together with our NGOs, together with our religious sector, together with all other formations in our communities, must work together in the interest of genuinely building a safer province for all. And in this regard, I was very, very surprised that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition called us the enemy, because he pledged his support to work with us. Now, you don't work with your enemies. You know, you work with your opponents. It's important to note that. The DA-led government is hard at work finalising the terms of reference for establishment of an interministerial Premier's Priority Committee on Safety, and I hope our colleagues will be serving on this. I see the nod from my dear colleague who's been omitted from speaking here today because he's youth. This committee will be chaired. This committee will be chaired. This committee will be chaired and report to Premier Winde on a regular basis. It will work towards a crowding in of resources and a different level at different levels of government to assist communities identified as high-risk gang stations. This committee will also work in good faith with community organizations, councillors, and faith-based movements. We realize that the key task is to provide young people with alternatives to gangs. And I think that's the fundamental point we want to emphasize today. It is no secret, Honourable Deputy Speaker, that many of the problems we face have to do with poor SAP service delivery. It's under-resourced. We're not calling the services as under-resourced. There are no boots on the ground. That's what we are saying in this debate. The Premier is currently leading an intergovernmental dispute challenging the current allocation of SAP's resources to this province, and particularly in gang-ravaged communities. And it's so ironic that this very ANC government who talks about the poor, all the privileged stations along the seaboard, all of them are very overcapacitated and well-capacitated. And it's our poor areas where it's undercapacitated. To address SAP's poor service delivery, we also need to repair the damage done to its crime-fighting capacity through factional turf wars and chronic under-resourcing. This will be achieved through the appointment of a new, competent and politically neutral provincial police commissioner, we hope. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is that this process be completed without delay. The new provincial commissioner will have a number of immediate tasks. The most important is to sort out the operational and other issues that are currently bedeviling the effectiveness of SAPs in this province. Another important task for the provincial commissioner will be to facilitate a seamless community police forum elections in September. This will be a critical marker towards improving relationships between SAPs, local stations and community. In turn, the department will play its part in overseeing these elections. This department has gone above and beyond its role of oversight by ensuring that our resources are used optimally towards creating safer communities. Yesterday, I joined a local councillor in Bonteheuwel where we commended the outstanding success of deployment of 100 Metro law enforcement officers in Bonteheuwel since the 2nd of July 2019. Since the deployment of these additional law enforcement officers, there have been 43 arrests made, 372 illegal substances confiscated, 7 firearms and ammunition uncovered. What's more, the additional deployment led to 43 kilograms of stolen PRASA cables being found and confiscated. What is also interesting, that no murders occurred since their employment. And so, honourable members, there's a clear link between that their deployment and people been murdered in many of the towns. Deputy Speaker, since the deployment, there have been no gang-related deaths in Bonteheuwel. We will work with the City of Cape Town to deploy law enforcement officers to more gang-ravaged communities, and we must find the money for it. My department will further be assisting the city in its crime-fighting initiatives by transferring 4.2 million towards school resource officers. For the honourable member next to me, who never kind of reciprocates, he never gives back to us anything, just us giving, but we have a good understanding with each other. We will also be in the outer financial year, additional 4.4 million transferred in 2020-21, and then in financial out 2021-22, 4.6 million. I'm reassured that by implementing these integrated short and medium term and long term safety strategies, that we will overcome the rampant criminality in this province. It is my hope that our citizens will feel safe, that children will be able to play freely, and that the streets and businesses and that tourism can be a buzz in our communities. And it's honourable members of this parliament, it is not about keeping people in. The reality is people live there. So let us make the most of it, and if you can get out of it, get out of it. It's not saying that we want little colonies of poverty. We want to break that poverty cycle. It's also, however we can only achieve this if we work better together. And I've asked the honourable, we had a very, very unfortunate situation on Friday with the national minister when we wanted to exercise our constitutional duty as the Premier and myself at the base where all the army troops were gathering and metro troops and local SAPs. And as we were about to enter the kind of parade and we were invited, by the way, by the Provincial Commissioner to go and just to come and encourage. The national minister phoned to say, you can't be there, you can't. We, of course, told him I can't use the word, parliament, it's unparliamentary. But the point we're making, we will not stop exercising our constitutional obligations in this province. We're not the past where people just sat and did oversight.
Thank you, Minister.
This is a different place.
Your time is up.
And a different space with this new Premier. Yes.
Thank you, Minister Fritz.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see the Honourable Fernandes, Minister Fernandes.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable Premier, Cabinet colleagues, Honourable Leader of the Opposition, all honourable members, guests in the gallery, members of the media, fellow South Africans, good afternoon. Honourable Speaker, Deputy Speaker, it is indeed a privilege for me to present my first speech as the Minister of Social Development in the 6th Provincial Parliament today. Since it is Mandela Month, I would like to start with a quote by Nelson Mandela, which resonates deeply with me. I quote, "There is nothing I fear more than waking up without a program that will help me bring a little happiness to those with no resources, those who are poor, illiterate, and riddled with terminal disease." Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Provincial Department of Social Development is empowered by statutory obligations, policy mandates, and the provincial strategic goals, amongst others. Goal 2 calls on us to improve education outcomes and opportunities for youth development, while strategic Goal 3 calls on us to increase wellness, safety, and to tackle social ills. At present, Deputy Speaker, we are feeling the effects of an economy in distress, an economy plagued by fraud, corruption, and maladministration, which has a direct impact on the funding to provinces, or the lack thereof. It is not only the Department of Social Development that is feeling the pinch, but it is Joe and Jane citizen too, who has to struggle to pay for public transport to get to work. The mother who finds herself paying double the amount she did for children's school lunches 5 years ago. The business owner who struggles to keep his doors open due to blackouts and ongoing protest action. Our NGO partners and all other stakeholders who play a pivotal role in reaching all residents across this province remain a key partner in our efforts. However, the current economic climate and the reduction of the overall fiscal base may have negative consequences for all the department's support to NGOs. Deputy Speaker, these are indeed challenging times. I wish to reiterate that although we might not all represent the same political party in this House, we all do in fact represent all the people in this province. So before I continue, I would like to use this opportunity to call on everyone here present to work together during these difficult times to ensure that we can in fact leave South Africa for better for future generations to come. Deputy Speaker, the Department of Social Development remains dedicated to providing adequate and quality early childhood development and partial care services. It has become increasingly understood that early childhood development is an important aspect of human development. At the end of the 2017-2018 financial year, 85,260 children had access to ECD and after-school care facilities. This figure is projected to increase to 88,000 by the end of the 2019-2020 financial year, as compared to 50,000 in 2009. Priority number 3, highlighted by Premier Windey last week, spells out what we will be doing to make sure that no matter where you live and work, your life is made easier. This is very much in line with the Department's Strategic Goal 3, which calls on us to increase wellness, safety, and tackle social ills. I personally believe that with collaborative efforts between government, SAPS, the criminal justice system, civil society, members of the community, we can beat the scourge of alcohol and drug abuse in our communities. To help address the escalating substance abuse problem in this province, social work staff will continue to be capacitated to deal with both preventative as well as treatment options for substance abuse via the department's funded studies at universities. We continuously witness the fear and terror imposed on our communities because of substance abuse. In 2007-2008, there were 45,936 cases of drug-related crime in the Western Cape. A serious cause for concern is that this number has now risen to 117,157, according to the latest crime statistics. Deputy Speaker, only a whole-of-society approach through the efforts of all spheres of society can put a stop to the demonic acts of violence being witnessed by our communities. It takes a community to raise a child. Let's unite to protect our children from the scourge of addiction and abuse. Let's go back to practicing the old adage of your child is my child. A key component to making this possible is ensuring that our programs and initiatives include creating spaces where people and communities can live and prosper. This indeed includes those people living with disabilities. Notable achievements thus far include the subsidy for the 24-hour care facilities for children with disabilities, which was increased substantially from 2,589 to 5,510 rand per child per month. This is in compliance with the November 2010 court judgment directing all departments of DSD to provide reasonable measures for the educational needs of severely and profoundly disabled children. Provision has also been made for the payment of the salaries of carers and program implementers of intellectually disabled children in daycare centres, and also the purchasing of safe, suitably adapted transportation for the children to and from the daycare centres has commenced. Our province has geared itself towards the age of technological advancement, commonly referred to as the fourth industrial revolution, by introducing an electronic pay slip system for visually impaired and partially sighted provincial government employees. Finally, between 2014 and 2018, the department increased the access of persons with disabilities to specialized support services from 55,323 to 88,089 persons. I wish to thank the Honourable Minister Fritz for leading the charge in this regard. The department has committed to providing social welfare services to persons with disabilities to 89,698 people around the province by the end of the 2019-20 financial year. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the department has invested heavily in ensuring it is able to respond timelessly to cases of children at risk by improving our preventative services and early intervention services. In this regard, I welcome the draft Provincial Plan of Action intervening to reduce child murders, which was started in 2017. This achievement is very much in line with Premier Windy's fourth priority, and that is to ensure that no matter where you call home, you live free from fear. Honourable Deputy Speaker, as the DA-led Western Cape government, we will continue to work tirelessly to improve the services we deliver to the people of our province. However, government cannot achieve this alone. More importantly, at a provincial level, we will strive to maintain and strengthen our relationships with entities such as SASSA and the NDA to ensure that they fulfill their mandate. Honourable members, let's agree to unite and work together to address the issues that affect the poor, the vulnerable, and the most marginalised in our communities. I wish to thank the Honourable Member Baku Foss for alerting me to a situation in her constituency which we will resolve together. This is a clear indication that we can be better together. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. I see the Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, let me start by saying that in this debate on the Premier's State of Province address, how surprised I am to have featured so prominently in Minister Madikizela's speech. Some would be flattered that they occupy so much of his headspace, but I'm really concerned that he fails to understand what is really happening between Kudeta and the My City, and for as long as he fails to understand it, the commuters who are standing in queues in Khayelitsha and Mitchell's Plain have cold comfort. Deputy Speaker, it was pleasing to hear the word integrity being used and mentioned so many times in the Premier's address. Good will support a government of integrity and one that actually delivers on programs. But integrity is far more than a lifestyle audit. Integrity is when your actions match your words. And what I heard last week was gimmicks and excuses. The Premier pretends to be powerless to improve the rail service unless the rail service is transferred to the province, powerless to release land unless national government does it first, powerless to stop crime unless the province becomes in charge of the police force. Yet there are good solutions that are available to those who are brave enough to use them. Deputy Speaker, my team improved rail safety in Cape Town by launching that rail police force that the Minister talks about. We doubled housing delivery within 2 years through efficiencies. And my efforts to make well-located land available for affordable housing failed only because the Premier's DA colleagues in the City of Cape Town blocked it. Deputy Speaker, we can change the status quo, but do we really want to? We need action, not gimmicks.
Honourable Heron, just sit down for a second. Honourable members, we did decide that maiden speeches, there would be silence, and I would ask that you would respect Honourable Heron's maiden speech. I see you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Honourable Heron, if you can just take your seat. I see the opposition.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. My point of order is that, as you say, we are respecting the convention of not heckling and interjecting, but what is the situation if you so much approve of what the Speaker is saying that you just exclaim? Are you allowed to do that?
Thank you, Honourable Member. I see the Honourable Chief Whip.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The convention is indeed that maiden speeches should be heard without interruption. However, the convention also extends the fact that the speeches should be uncontroversial in their nature, and if that line is then crossed, then the interruptions, interjections can be entertained.
Members, can we proceed with Honourable Heron's speech? I see Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. My speech would have been uncontroversial if the Minister hadn't introduced me into his speech. Deputy Speaker, we need action, not gimmicks. Saying you believe in spatial transformation, but you offer Forest Village housing project as an example of this, or as evidence of this, really exposes your government as lacking credibility. Forest Village is not spatial justice. Forest Village is not spatial integration. It does not vanquish apartheid, as you say. It is more than 30 kilometres from the city of Cape Town. It is, in fact, further away from the city of Cape Town than the townships that apartheid created. It, in fact, entrenches racial inequality, spatial and economic injustice. It places the poor far from opportunity, and it keeps them poor. Deputy Speaker, the Premier should know that he is not playing a game of monopoly. His decisions on the fate of public land affects where people live, and where people live matters. Deputy Speaker, when the Premier says he supports integration, when he says he wants to vanquish apartheid's legacy, when he makes these promises on Madiba's birthday and says he will walk in Madiba's path, but then he and his party act by selecting former Nats to lead the spatial transformation in this province, when they show Forest Village as the example of how they will vanquish apartheid, then the actions contradict the words. Deputy Speaker, the idea of taking government to the people is an excellent one, but you insult us with another gimmick when you say you can achieve this by using First Thursdays. First Thursdays is a wonderful event. It is great for those who enjoy sipping Chardonnay, looking at art, and visiting bars and restaurants in our city centre. Deputy Speaker, if you are serious about taking government to the people, then take it to the people who cannot come to you. Take your government to Nyanga, to Manenberg, to Thembeletu, to Zwelizwe. Deputy Speaker, the promise of a job in every home and the commitment to reducing red tape sounds wonderful. Last year, 3 out of every 4 jobs created in the country came from the construction sector. But let's examine what the DA is doing to the construction sector. Today, the construction sector is in steep decline in the Western Cape, and those investors are looking to invest elsewhere. Cape Town's achievements in efficiency are at risk, and this is due to new red tape being imposed or being considered by the DA government that governs the city of Cape Town. If the DA had chosen to support major infrastructure projects or inner-city housing, it could have helped grow the construction sector. Instead, it is helping to collapse the construction sector. Deputy Speaker, we do need economic growth, but we need that growth to be inclusive. The province's own Treasury Department has pointed out that in the Western Cape, inequality is growing, not declining. For the thousands, Deputy Speaker, and inequality is one of the root causes of crime. For the thousands of lives being lost to violent crime, the Premier suggests a new committee. The Premier does promise a war room, but that war room will not even consider the actual war happening in the Cape Flats. Deputy Speaker, we need to get rid of the gimmicks like the discredited, failed technology shot spotter and really invest in the communities that are ravaged by crime. Deputy Speaker, poor communities bear the brunt of deep inequality and crime, but they will also bear the brunt of climate change. We have a climate change emergency on our hands, and this government doesn't mention it once. Spatial and economic justice is much more than apartheid redress. It is also linked to the urgent need to tackle climate change.
If you can finish off, Honourable Member.
The more forest villages the DA builds, the more carbon emissions this and future generations will emit getting to and from work. Climate change, urban sprawl, forest village, economic, social, spatial, environmental justice, these are all issues that are connected. Deputy Speaker, what we need is action, not gimmicks. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Perrin. I see the Minister Simmers.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable Premier, Leader of the Opposition, Honourable Cabinet members, Honourable members of this House, and our guests in the gallery. It was former President Nelson Mandela who said, and thank you, Member Mkondlo, for stealing my quote, and I quote, "A new society cannot be created by reproducing the repugnant past, however refined or enticingly packaged," close quote. This is the very reason why we, as Western Cape Government, are committed to accelerating human settlement delivery while promoting social inclusion through the development of integrated, resilient and sustainable human settlements in an open society. Our settlements are and will continue to reflect citizens living together in one community, regardless of their color, creed, language, culture, or sexual orientation. We are building true, united communities in our province and as a party across South Africa, one community at a time. It is for this reason that we will be focusing on 3 radical drivers throughout my office, my term of office, Deputy Speaker. These 3 focus areas are, firstly, radical acceleration of housing opportunities, radical implementation of innovative solutions, and finally, an integrated approach. The emphasis is integrated approach to human settlements. When I refer to being radical, I'm not suggesting that we will be militant or become violent. On the contrary, I am saying there will be a significant push towards getting more of our people into housing opportunities, but also towards giving people true ownership through title deeds, as in both instances. Not only are we creating a better life for our people, but we are restoring the dignity of our residents, given our past injustices. Deputy Speaker, over the last 2 terms, we have managed to deliver just under 213,000 quality housing opportunities. And it is projected that by 2022, through our various catalytic and provincial priority projects, we will add a further 105,500 quality housing opportunities. This is acceleration. This is radical service delivery. Already in our Forest Village housing project, and yes, just need to remind Member Brett Herron that that is a national catalytic project, which will see in excess of 4,500 people receiving an opportunity. Handovers are commencing every second week. And yes, we are the only province that are delivering on these national catalytic projects, and you need to remember that. Thank you. Already, just 3 weeks ago, and in the space of 1 week, Deputy Speaker, 67 beneficiaries in this project have received their keys. And tomorrow, a further 23 will move into their homes. Last week, I also visited Blue Downs, where I had the privilege to hand over 52 title deeds. These are but the few radical accelerated deliveries over the last 6 weeks, with a lot more to come. At our Belhar CBD project, which is estimated to yield 1,225 housing opportunities upon its conclusion at the end of 2021, we are seeing significant move into our FLISP units. In fact, Deputy Speaker, of the 245 units already delivered, 241 are allocated to FLISP beneficiaries, and the further 32 more of these units are envisaged to be handed over by the end of July 2019. Ondervoorzitter, ons beweeg teen 'n versnelde pas, so julle moet dophou en julle moet bybly. We remain committed to rolling out our integrated urban development framework and the small town regeneration program. This is evident in our various catalytic and other projects throughout the province. We have to continue improving our rural communities, and I am committed to ensuring this. Deputy Speaker, it is therefore that I have prioritized 7 non-metro projects, and they are, firstly, the metro grounds in George, where I've had a start turning, Melkertfontein in Essequa, Zouar in Kannaland, Vredenburg in Saldanha, Louis Fourie in Mossel Bay, Duiselsdorp in Oudtshoorn, where for the first time in 26 years, people will actually start feeling the governance difference. And ultimately, the Houston and Skulphoek in the Overstrand area, which will from now on be called the greater, In a further effort to accelerate housing delivery, we have strategically focused our resources to 3 priority areas. Firstly, directing more resources for the upgrading of informal settlements and the provision of basic services. Increasing affordable or gap housing, along with our financial linked individual subsidy program, FLISP. And lastly, prioritizing the most deserving people in relation to the allocation of BNG houses. Deputy Speaker, so who are we prioritizing for these opportunities and what are the criteria? En ek moet net benadruk, want sekere mense het nie geweet wat hulle sê nie. Firstly, the elderly, people with disabilities, child-headed households, those who have been the longest on the waiting list, and our backyard dwellers, particularly those single mothers. Deputy Speaker, a few weeks ago, I issued an executive directive to all municipalities that from now on, backyard dwellers must also be a priority. This means whenever we identify beneficiaries from the housing waiting lists, backyarders must be prioritized, as we will work on a 50-50 split within the other criteria. And if you did not know, we are the first province in the country to officially make backyarders a priority. Deputy Speaker, it is a fact that we are in the fourth industrial revolution and we have to use technology to our fullest benefit. This is exactly what this department intends doing. Just earlier today, we launched our exciting HomeWise youth competition.
Order.
Where we will be developing an app for citizens to easily access information on government housing assistance, and have called on young people to help us do this by designing the mock-ups or prototypes or wireframes of this app. So let's therefore, as members of this House, together encourage our young upcoming techies to enter this competition. Voorzitter, op hierdie manier maak ons nie net seker dat ons jeug saam met die departement werk nie, maar 'n geleentheid word ook gebied om die eerste behuisingsstoep te ontwikkel. Immers is ons beter tesame. Deputy Speaker, the use of alternative building technology is also being encouraged, as it is vital in sustainable development. In Mossel Bay, we currently have the Yakinlu PHP project where only ABTs are being utilized. 150 units are being built at a cheaper rate. The cost of electricity will be less, and it holds long-term benefits for our environment. During my engagement this week with the banking sector, they have indicated their appetite for ABTs and a willingness to support these programs and our initiatives concerning. Deputy Speaker, our Premier mentioned in his State of the Province address that we have to ensure that the spaces we create are safe, close to transport, and economic opportunities. I am currently engaging my colleague, the Provincial Minister of Transport and Public Works, Minister Madikizela, about releasing well-located, provincially owned buildings and tracts of land for human settlement developments, which are close to the inner city and economic opportunities. Hierdie gesprekke is besig om vrugte af te werp, want beide van ons wil verseker dat meer mense 'n behuisingsgeleentheid kry wat na aan ekonomiese geleenthede geleë is. Deputy Speaker, furthermore, we will be embarking on creating smart townships, not a dream of a smart city. These settlements, which are home ownership driven and inclusive of all the relevant services, will be piloted throughout the province in our existing projects. The process to establish these innovative integrated townships are already underway, and in due course we will announce the details. Deputy Speaker, over the last 6 weeks, I've really covered the length and breadth of our province, covering nearly 8,000 kilometers. And I've been to areas in the Southern Cape, the West Coast, and in the metro area. I've visited Mfuleni, Khayelitsha, and many other areas, visiting not only our provincial projects, but also engaging beneficiaries, key stakeholders, but ultimately also ward councillors. And I've made it abundantly clear that we need responsible citizenship. This means that all residents, including our backyard dwellers, who need housing assistance from government, must register at the local housing office, or, if they've already registered before, should ensure that their details are up to date, particularly if contact information has changed since registration. On Sunday, as a good example, during a meeting with Forest Village beneficiaries from Ward 17, quite a few people missed their housing, or nearly missed their housing opportunity, as they failed to update their details. Fortunately for them, they were present at this meeting, and the council committed to finding the rest. Tomorrow, they are part of those that are moving in to Forest Village. This is accelerated delivery, Deputy Speaker. What I've also found is that in some areas, there are so-called community leaders seeking to influence people to embark on protest action. In some instances, I should agree they have legitimate cases, as some residents are not receiving the services owed to them.
If you can finish.
I have,
your
however,
sentence.
encouraged our residents to use relevant platforms such as the councillors, ward committees or project steering committees to resolve any issues they might have.
Your time is up, Minister.
Okay, as I conclude, let me state the following.
No, you can finish your sentence. Members, honourable members, I'm sitting in the chair, so I would have allowed the Minister to finish his sentence, as I have allowed a whole lot of you to finish your sentences. Thank you very much. If we can move on to the Honourable Murray.
Madam Speaker, Premier, honourable members, the time allotted to me does not lend it to flowery oratory skills here. So let me get to the point straight away. I was sufficiently impressed by the speech of the Premier to look forward to developing a good working relationship with him. His speech contained considerable principles and ideas which the Freedom Front Plus advocated and supported during our election campaign. Like you, Honourable Premier, we also want to give cooperative governance a chance, thereby putting the people's needs first above political expediency. Let's play for a barbarian team. Take off your party jerseys and don a Western Province jersey, and let's all fight for the provincial province. The Freedom Front desire a capable, efficient state, like the Premier said, that is accountable to all its citizens. And that is why I ask, to what extent did the Enterprise Development Fund also assist young coloured entrepreneurs thus far? How many bursaries have been made available to coloured and Afrikaans-speaking students wishing to study agriculture at Elsenburg College the past 5 years? And why did the DA-controlled city of Cape Town allow the hubs at Belleville, business hubs at Belleville Station, Mitchell's Plain, Elsies River, Grand Parade, to become the cash registers of Somalians, Zimbabweans, and Nigerians? Where's my people? They used to walk on the Grand Parade. They've been pushed out. And we say we fight for everybody. Who put you in power? The Zimbabweans or the Cape Townians? Mr. Speaker, what has the Western Cape government done to realize we have very little power? We need to cooperate with national if we want to get anywhere. Let me tell the members of the public who don't know, and the media, these are the powers the province have. They're in charge of abattoirs, ambulance services, archives, libraries, liquor licenses, and museums. That's the only power you've got.
Order.
So what are you going to do about it? I want to tell you what we must do about it. We expect too much of a province that really, in terms of this constitution, is purely an administrative extension of national government. Nothing else. They make the laws, you carry it out. So we're playing dollhouse, Popeye. The issues have to be addressed. And your city should remember.
Order.
I'll come to you just now.
No. Honourable Murray, please through the chair. Carry on.
The issues which we should be addressed, or the swing towards the Freedom Front Plus, will be tripled in 2021. Our constitutional mandate was given to us by the voting public of the Western Cape, not foreigners. The Cape's distinctive cultures and values which minorities hold dear, must be protected and it must be respected. Therefore, I want the Premier to give his views on this, with special reference to the descendants of the Khoi and the Griqua and the Bukab communities in his response. Red tape and regulations must be reduced to assist small businesses, to create jobs, and eradicate people's dependency on state grants. We're not a socialist state, but 17 million of our people in this country live on grants. Dependency on grants may bring temporary relief, but cannot eradicate poverty. State dependency feeds socialism and stifles economic growth, leading to the middle class being burdened with exorbitant taxes. But one thing I want to ask my Premier, you have failed to explain the DA's language policy in respect of Afrikaans, which is one of the 3 official languages of the Western Cape. English has become, they say a fool can ask more questions than a wise man can answer.
Order. Order. Your time is nearly up, Honourable Murray, so you need to hurry up. 30 seconds, just... Honourable
I have 5 years. You can hear me the 5 years.
Please
English has
continue.
become like a locust plague that devours every other language in its path. It is a remnant of colonialism forced on the Cape by English settlers in 1822. Although Afrikaans replaced Dutch as the second official language at the Cape, it is now under constant attack.
If you can finish your Honourable
We
Murray.
must and will resist all attempts to destroy it. Afrikaans is my moedertaal. Dit is 'n inheemse taal.
Thank
Dit is
you.
die taal van breinmense en ek sal daarvoor veg.
Thank
En
you,
jy,
Honourable
meneer
Murray.
Premier, moet vir ons help dat ons selfbeskikking kry vir die Weskaap.
Thank you, Honourable
We
Murray.
do not want to be under national rule. We want
Thank you,
federalism.
Honourable Murray.
And I'm
Please
asking
take your
you
seat. Take
to
your
put
seat, Honourable
your
Murray.
party's position on federalism.
Honourable
I
Mayor,
thank
take
you.
your seat. Thank you very much. Honourable members, can I just ask for your attention for a second, please? We have been very lenient today, but I can guarantee you that going forward, as you will no longer be doing your maiden speeches, we won't. You need to make sure that your speeches are well within the time. Thank you. I now see the Honourable Dalen Mitchell.
Point of order. Am I a maiden speech maker?
Thank you, Honourable Murray.
Honourable Deputy Speaker.
1 minute. Can we have some order and can we please proceed? I see the Honourable Mitchell.
Speaker, Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable Premier, members of this august House, it is indeed a great honour to take part in this debate, the first of South Africa's 6th Parliament. Honourable Speaker, on the 18th of July, we and many others across the globe commemorated and celebrated the life of the late President Nelson Mandela, who dedicated his life to the upliftment and the development of each and every child born on African soil. It is also on this very date that the Western Cape Premier delivered his maiden State of the Province address. But, Honourable Deputy Speaker, whilst listening to the Premier outlining his vision for this beautiful province, I was reminded of the many hardships that so many in the Western Cape still face. Not too long ago, the people of this province experienced the worst drought in 100 years. The community of Wuppertal lost their homes, and families in Khayelitsha lost every last belonging in terrible shack fires. The community of Knysna had to succumb to raging wildfires which devastated the region and its people. Honourable Premier, through you, Deputy Speaker, it is clear that our province is at the mercy of various natural disasters which devastates communities and continually set back the people of this province. As the Western Cape gradually adapts to new norms in the face of climate change and an ever-changing environment, we must come together to help our fellow man and lend a hand to our neighbors in their time of need. Honourable Deputy Speaker, in the spirit of Ubuntu, I would like to take this opportunity to formally request that this government establishes a dedicated, provincially owned donations depot where residents of the Western Cape from across the province can be involved in relief efforts by dropping off donations of any kind for government to redistribute to those in need. Honourable Deputy Speaker, under a DA-led Western Cape government, we should endeavour to always unite communities, to share resources and support one another by building a South Africa for all 365 days a year. Honourable Speaker, as we speak, the ANC national government is auctioning off 13 of the Afro 4000 locomotives owned by the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa. The coaches purchased in 2012 by the national government are unfit for South African lines, translating, Honourable Deputy Speaker, to 3.5 billion rand in taxpayers' money down the train or drain. Is there any wonder why we do not trust the ANC with our trains? As the new chairperson of the Standing Committee on Transport and Public Works, I pledge my commitment to Premier Alan Windy's goal to both address the issue of spatial planning in this province as well as wrestle control of the passenger rail transportation from the ANC at the national government. Rail transportation is yet another disaster in the Western Cape. But, Deputy Speaker, this is a disaster of the ANC's doing. Just minutes before getting up to do this speech, the notorious Central line had to be, the Laverstown line had to be suspended again by the Metro Rail's inadequacy to provide to the 700,000 people who make use of rail transportation in the city of Cape Town each and every day. The collapse of this service under the ANC's continues to set back our province. I welcome Premier Windy's intention to take over the management of the rail system in the province from the national government so that trains work, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and run on time. That we introduced a competition by licensing private sector operators to take over the operation of the rail system on qualifying routes in the Western Cape, and to introduce a combined ticketing system, Honourable Deputy Speaker, to be used on all modes of public transport. Progress on these delivery of these intentions will be closely monitored by the Standing Committee. If the Honourable Dugmore and the ANC is so dedicated to resolving the rail transportation collapse in the Western Cape, I trust that he will support the devolution of rail from national government to local government and provincial government, as stated, and I repeat, Honourable Deputy Speaker, as stated in the 2017 version of the draft white paper on national rail policy. Indeed, even the Honourable Dugmore's own political party supports the devolution by means of draft legislation at a national level. Playing politics with the issue in the province only serves to hamper the lives of the hundreds of thousands of commuters who rely on this service every single day. In the process, I also welcome the Premier's commitment to rail safety and security. While President Ramaphosa dreams of bullet trains, Honourable Deputy Speaker, the residents of the Western Cape merely dream of bullet-free trains to arrive on time. Similarly, I trust that the Honourable Heron, and I believe through the speech today by the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, also Honourable Dugmore, is as committed to addressing spatial planning in the Western Cape as the Honourable Dugmore is committed at addressing spatial planning in the Western Cape by having direct access to the Minister, the National Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, and perhaps they can now lobby Minister De Lille to release the various tracts of state-owned land in and around the city of Cape Town that the provincial government has been begging for over the last 5 years.
Mitchell, your time is up. Finish your sentences.
Okay. In closing, Honourable Deputy Speaker, rail transportation transportation, spatial planning, and access
Members.
to mobility and space should be at the forefront of this government's plan for the next 5 years. And I trust that the honourable opposition
Members.
will work with this
Thank
government
you.
to ensure that these issues are addressed. I
Thank you very much. I see the Honourable Christians.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable Premier, Honourable Members, the Premier said in his speech that the fourth priority, crime, is a complex but very important one, and I will agree with him on that. But let's begin with the deployment of the South African Defence Force. It's recorded in this House that the ACDP said that we are against, we oppose the deployment of the army in our townships. I also see that the leader of the official opposition made a U-turn. He first supported us to say that we don't need the army. Now he agrees that we need the army. Speaker, it is reported that the army will be deployed 3 months from the 16th of July, 18th of July to the 16th of September, and it will cost 23 million rand. And the question is, what then? What when the army leaves? In Brazil, President Temer also got the army involved in community safety, and he said that Rio, the metropolitan area of 12 million people, the gangs has virtually taken over. It's worse after the army has left, and those measures appear to have the opposite effect. And the consequences of a failing intervention of the army has got a lasting impact in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro. There is Zianda Steelman, a graduate from Stellenbosch University, that said the deployment of the South African Defence Force will worsen the security of residents in the area. I cannot believe that when we say that deaths is down from 40 somewhat to 25, the army is making impact. One life is too many. We cannot lose any lives in the townships. So enough about the army, Deputy Speaker, but the province need to come with innovative ways how to bring about community safety. And my plea to the Premier is that when it comes to the appropriation adjustment budget, that community safety will get much more. I believe that budget is too small. We need to do much more. We know, and I've reported in this House last year, that it was said that we will have by the end of December 20,000 neighbourhood watch members. We only sat with 14,000 when it was recorded. Neighbourhood watches plays an integral part when it comes to ensuring the safety of our communities. Also, community police forums plays a critical part. And we need to resource the neighborhood watches. We need to resource the police community forums in order to make a difference. Because community police forums is the platform where residents and organizations and the relevant stakeholders can meet and discuss the crime prevention initiatives. So the CPFs can also improve transparency when it comes to the accountability of the police and promote joint problem solving. So, Deputy Speaker, this province will have to look at ways how to look at getting our community safe. And I was at the meeting a month ago, and Minister Fritz is not there, where we spoke to about 300 leaders in Manenberg, and they all get up to help and say, how can we help? How can we reduce crime when it comes to Manenberg and other areas adjacent to that? The Premier also mentioned about the city of Cape Town, the law enforcement officers, when it comes to safer communities and safety schools. The question is, and this is what I read the other day, the NCOP Safety and Justice Committee was briefed on how to increase the powers by the Institute of Municipal Public Safety of Southern Africa. We need to get our law enforcement officers to do more. They cannot just enforce bylaws. They need to assist when it comes to combating crime. The same with our Metro Police. The Metro Police got all the powers of the SAPS, but they don't have investigating powers. Why not get the Metro Police to do investigation when it comes to petty crime? Petty crime, why must detectives that's understaffed and under-resourced sit with petty crimes? So I'm asking the Premier to look at these things, to speak to the city, and look at how can they get more powers in order to assist the crime as we look at this. The other problem that we have, I don't think that the spot soccer is helping us. We are spending a lot of money when it comes to the sports, what is it now, the shot spotter is spending a lot of money, and it's reported that it's money down the drain. 32 million in total was spent, 3,404 gunshots, 1,040 incidents, but only 9 people have been arrested with this shot spotter. It needs to be looked at. The CCTV cameras. When we sit in committees, we hear that most of the cameras is not working. And yet the weekend, 25 murders, 18 victims comes from Kailicha and Mitchell's Plain. We need more CCTV cameras. And it was said that Kailicha will not get a single CCTV camera from 44 from the city of Cape Town. It will cost 17 million rand. Speaker, the Premier also did not mention anything when it comes to farm murders. So when we talk about farm workers and farmers, we need to have a clear plan what will happen when it comes to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I see the Honourable Botha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, Honourable Premier, Honourable Members of the Cabinet, and Honourable Members of this House. Speaker, in the essence of the proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. Allow me to highlight a gem in special need education in Westridge, Mitchell's Plain. Autism Connect. This gem is a product of parents who created a village in order to raise their children with special needs. I'd like to introduce members of this House and the public to Nicolette Repepe. Nicolette Repepe is in this House today. She is sitting there on the gallery. Nicolette found that her son required special attention and, in particular, specialized education. Fortunately, she also realized that the need was shared by many other parents and children in her community. So she started Autism Connect in 2012 with 3 children, a facility for the enhanced development of professional services and the potential opportunity for acceptance into autism-specific schools. Nicolette then left her formal employment in 2015 in order to run Autism Connect full-time. Autism Connect now has 30 children. 30 children who now have the opportunity of education and its prospects despite the adversity that they faced. Nicolette is now the director of Autism Connect and has represented Autism South Africa at the World Autism Conference in Texas and also at the Pan-African Congress in Kenya. Deputy Speaker, I've seen similar victories in the Western Cape. The Premier has quoted that over the last 10 years, 171 billion rand has been invested in our school system in our province. The fact that this province has improved its matric pass rate to 81%, that we have the highest retention rate and perform the best in mathematics and science, showcases a return in investment. The WCED blanket covered schools with internet access to enhance learning experience through new sources. We boast with 40% no-fee paying schools, which exceeds other provinces in pro-poor policy by far. And our Collaboration Schools initiative will further attract investment in our schools to bring about upgrades. But we cannot be blind to challenges in the province, Deputy Speaker. Vandalism has taken its toll on our facilities and challenges school security. It negatively impacts the educational experience when e-learning tools are stolen. Deputy Speaker, maybe our government should embark on a name and shame register so that communities see who the perpetrators are and be encouraged to take pride in their schools. Drugs and alcohol abuse negatively affects young minds, and this results in poor decision-making. I wish to encourage that more after-school initiatives be rolled out at schools. Deputy Speaker, parents must take responsibility for their children by law. The responsibility cannot rest with government. Some parents are to be blamed for children's absence from school for long periods and often, as we term it, all-day paydays, when they are allowed to be absent. Deputy Speaker, our governing bodies should also be strengthened along with the input of ordinary parents who take on these roles. We continue to battle with overcrowding in our schools, but it was consoling to note the department's comprehensive strategy to tackle this problem. Deputy Speaker, this may be due to our success rate in the province because in the Western Cape we maximize opportunity. But at the same time, this province must insist that the finances follow these learners. Deputy Speaker, with all the above said, there are also excellent forces at our schools, the dedicated teachers who understand their roles and the dedicated parents. I want to thank those dedicated parents and teachers. They play a big role in making this a success. Deputy Speaker, at the DA, we take the bad with the good and we continue to seek opportunities for improvement to ensure quality education remains an engine for personal development. As the father of our nation, Nelson Mandela, encapsulated, education is the great engine of personal development. It is through education that the daughter of a peasant can become a doctor, that the son of a mine worker can become the head of the mine, that the child of farm workers can become the president of a great nation. Close quote. It is thus what we make out of what we have and not what we are given that separates one person from another. Deputy Speaker, let's take a lesson from Autism Connect. Speaker, after 2 years of negotiations, the Autism Connect can now purchase land in Westridge. However, the challenge now is to raise the funds to acquire this land. They are not sitting and waiting for the money to fall from the sky, though. They have embarked on the biggest fundraiser ever. They started their Back a Buddy campaign, which will run throughout the country. They have to raise 475,000 rand by September this year in order to acquire this land. Deputy Speaker, this is a clear and concrete example of parental involvement in education, but more so a community involved in education. Deputy Speaker, through you, I call on the Premier and the Minister of Education to meet with Autism Connect. Deputy Speaker, the WCED have earmarked 2019 as the year of the learner, with a vision of quality education for every child in every classroom, in every school in this province. I would like thus to use this opportunity to encourage everyone to take responsibility to help see our learners succeed. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable Member, I see Minister Mbombo.
Honourable Premier, Deputy Speaker, the members of the House, the guests in the gallery, the media, people in the Western Cape, and Yanibulis. Firstly, I want to bulela uPremier ngespeech sakhe esinike umkhomba ndlela into yoba thina apha kwi-department masenze ntoni na. The cliche that says that health is wealth, wealth is health is still relevant and undisputed. Investing in health has triple returns, which is the economic development, healthy population, and also it bridges the inequality gaps. Premier covered 5 areas in his speech, but I want to zoom on 2, which is the economy and safety. And I want to make a case on how health as a microcosm of societal ills, we have positioned ourselves as stewards in tackling these by investing in healthcare, of course working with other sectors to prevent these. In my budget speech in March 2019, I did identify some of the highlights where we are actually doing good. For example, the geographical accessibility and to quality comprehensive healthcare services, the health net coverage at rural services, the better health outcomes, including life expectancy, being the only health department with clean finance audits in 4 years and unqualified general audits for a decade. I spoke about the cutting-edge surgeries that we perform in our central hospitals. However, Deputy Speaker, I wouldn't be able only not to focus in terms of exactly what is happening beyond of what we have seen. The reason that I am picking up on the safety and economy is because we are the department where we find that anything can happen anytime. So there's no guarantee that we might be able to maintain all of that good story, because we're the only department that open 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, rendering services from the cradle, the unborn child up to the oldest person, including the deceased patient. And therefore, Madam Speaker, health has got a lot of challenges, hence we have to look beyond. Now, starting with the health and crime, the effects of crime and substance abuse increases the burden of disease, but also compromises the department's budget due to the fact that a significant portion of the Department of Health budget goes to treating the injured patients that got injured through, for example, from the gunshots, assault, or even being stabbed. So that's why for us, we always say that don't politicize crime because it also impacts mostly on health. It takes approximately an average of about 25,000 per person to care for an injured person at our emergency care hospitals due to gunshot. This also negatively impacts on other patients that are waiting for elective surgeries or procedures, because we have to prioritize these patients as the priority one. They are the rare patients. Also, when the death occurs, death from above require forensic pathology service. That puts us under the pressure actually for the whole system. For example, the homicide stats that we gathered from the weekend of the 31st of May to July 22nd, this weekend, show that the province had a total of about 373 bodies that were landed in our mortuaries, which is the Salt River in Grooteskier and also in the Tygerberg, as a result mostly of the gunshots and stabbing as a major contributor of all of these. One of our key projects in this financial year, Madam Speaker, Deputy Speaker, is the Observatory Forensic Pathology Services, where it will provide more of the spaces for such. It will offer services that are currently outsourced externally, including the toxicology, including also the DNA that often it has to be used outside and the people have to pay more money. Now it's coming back to us. Even the dead people do deserve to be treated with the utmost dignity. That is why we're building this FPS. Deputy Speaker, substance abuse is the leading contributor to the causes of crime in the province, and stats show that the majority of the mentally ill young patients that we admit in our psychiatric facilities have a substance abuse problem, with the top 3 substances including the cannabis, the tic, and the alcohol. The unfortunate part is that the majority of these patients admitted are the young people that should be economically active. Thanks to the Western Cape Mental Health Review Board that the Minister appoints, myself, which is the only one actually which is functioning, that gives us the stats, where we have seen presently that the South African government does not track or specify the dedicated budgets for mental health services, except for specialized psychiatry hospital, where the data doesn't address the expenditures in the country, in the country's psychiatry hospitals. Stekland Hospital has got a detox unit that provides a dedicated detox program for substance addiction. On average, we see 360 patient clients that are admitted per year for a period of 7 days. In addition to our response to these social issues that I've mentioned, we are building additional psychiatry units in existing hospitals because of the demand. But I must stress that institutionalization of people is not the only solution to curb the mental health problems, especially from substance abuse. Community mental health awareness that we do must be met with the family's responsibility to take care of their loved ones. There are upcoming psychiatry units that we're going to build now. One of those is in the Kailicha. We're going to have an additional unit, and also in the Eerste Rivier, where we're going to have unit. Also, some of the interventions through the whole of society, working with other departments, education, social development, safety, Department of Sports, and also with within the municipalities, we are tackling these through the multilateral, multi-sectoral, and the interdisciplinary approach. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the Premier in the State of the Address highlighted also the critical factor around the healthy lifestyle. Indeed, as a province, we are faced with a quadruple burden of disease. More than half of our patients present with more than 2 preventable chronic conditions. The stats show that with the Western Cape, #1 cause of death is diabetes, which is a lifestyle disease. Diabetes, unlike some other non-communicable disease, does not only rely on the provision of chronic medication, but it requires active lifestyle modification, health eating, exercise, weight management, and no smoking. In promoting wellness, you may recall in this House where we introduced the Western Cape on Wellness, a project that aims to fight non-communicable disease such as this diabetes, hypertension, and obesity. In case you are not aware, Western Cape is one of the provinces where we have got the people who are overweight, specifically the women. The focus has been in 3 folds, targeting Western Cape staff in terms of the WOW, the communities at large, and also for the school-going children. Now, for this focus, we have to emphasize where we have to replace I in illness with a we in the wellness, so that we can be able to upscale and intensify this WOW. Probably, Speaker, we need to start from here in this House. We have been doing that on a weekly basis, probably now copying from the Premier who introduced First Thursdays. Maybe I should introduce First Mondays, the beginning of the month, where everyone gets exercise and get out. Mr. Speaker, we delivered on infrastructure. We delivered world-class infrastructure projects in partnership with the Department of Transport and Public Works. In this financial budget, we committed 1.2 billion. In addition to what I shared then, where we have construction in the Gansbaai Clinic, Lanesberg Clinic, Caledon EMS, Swartland Hospital, Helderberg Hospital, Victoria Hospital. Now we have added Didorens Ambulance Station as part of the new infrastructure upcoming. Of course, the Klefontein Regional Hospital, Stroke Joster Hospital, the new Avian Park Clinic and in Breda Valley. Psychiatry facilities, as I've mentioned. Also, another psychiatry facility that's going to be added is a new Somerset Hospital. Every infrastructure contribution yields job creation. For example, for the forensic pathology, which is the Salt River Mortuary Lab that will replace the old mortuary, already we have created more than 200 jobs. Isn't that what we call a health and wealth? That's what we are calling. And also the issue of the technology. As I indicated earlier, our e-strategic vision that talks about the e-discharge, the e-prescription, the unique patient identifier, and all of those who are well advanced in terms of scaling all of these technologies throughout the province. Speaker, the member mentioned about Grabo. Premier was just making an example about the turnaround strategy or the improvement plan. Grabo is part of the other interventions. We have had the Helderberg Hospital improvement plan, the Khayelitsha Hospital improvement plan. Now we are introducing the Tygerberg EC improvement plan, the EMS medical services improvement plan. Because now and again, we have to keep on being a responsive government. You don't say you don't have money, we have to continue doing that. So the turnaround strategy for the EMS, which is the issue is about the waiting time, which being contributed by because the ambulances have to go to the red zone areas, waiting for the police to pick them up.
Honourable Minister, you need to try and conclude your speech now.
So we have got this, and the other turnaround strategies is to extend the opening times of the other clinics, especially in the rural areas. For example, in the Hessequa, the Melholt-Fontein, we have to extend the hours, the Pakkerstop, we have to extend the hours, the Tembale to CDC in the George, where we have to working around the hours. And then lastly, we're appealing for the .P to extend the hotline numbers. Currently, please call me, and all those now hotline numbers, they only end at 4, but now I want it at least to be 24 hours so that everyone, including the Auntie Sarah, to be able to have an access to the hotline. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Thank you, Honourable Minister. I let you finish because I wanted to hear the extended hours. Honourable Tiaga.
Honourable Speaker, Honourable Premier, members and distinguished guests, I greet you, Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier, Al-Jama approach your commitment to good governance. We want to bring to your attention once again that the Western Cape is becoming one of the most dangerous and unsafe areas, and that needs to change. Safety in the Western Cape have now reached its peak at such an extent that we are resorting to just about all and every kind of extreme safety measures. This includes bringing in the SANDF. We applaud you for that. However, let me reiterate that gangsterism is on the rise in our townships. Our hospitals, clinics, and schools are far from being safe. People are being gun-pointed, traumatized, robbed on their way to work, and make matters worse. When they get to the stations, then there's no trains or trains is late. To make matters worse, commuters on the Mitchells Plain and Khayelitsha lines using the My City buses are left destitute. Honorable Speaker, the contract between My City and the previous services provider has stopped months ago, and yet there are still no buses on that route. I don't see that process to get the buses back on the road will be finalized soon, as I urge you to follow and speed up the process to get the buses back on the road as a matter of urgency. Honorable Premier, our commitment to deal with the non-existing railway system is not unnoticed, as other provinces like Limpopo is facing with the same challenges. We must start recognizing neighborhood watch groups, equip them with training, give them equipment, and put them on the payroll. Most of them are unemployed people who do their bit to keep their neighborhood safe. We need effective policing by Metro Police to fill the gaps as well. Education and infrastructure in schools should not be separated. That is why Al-Jama appreciates new schools being built, however not at the cost of a newly built hospital being thrown down, then an established school being demolished, then the same hospital being built where the school was, and then the same school few steps away from where it was previously. How do we then count the amount of schools in the province? Is it plus one school or minus one school? As I am lost on the counting. What it is a waste of taxpayers' money. As I recall, this community objected to the process, and yet the Western Cape province proceeded with wasting taxpayers' money that could have been used for more effective security measures to prevent burglaries at school, efficient transport to all learners to schools, effective security measures implemented, revise school feeding schemes to reach more schools, put in place policies against households headed by children, and strategies on how to give access to free education to all foundation-phase learners, proper monitoring systems of how many learners enter school and drop out of schools before the age of 16. Al-Jama proposed that the province should put more stringent control measures in place for the close of any school, and the province to take serious national government's aims towards creating safer schools. Honorable Speaker, when are they going to rebuild the new hospital that is to replace GF Jooste Hospital? We welcome the improved STEM education system. We do welcome the Honorable Premier's commitment to job creation and economic opportunities. However, opportunities will become more visible to reach the poorest of the poor. The poorest must benefit from the thriving economy you claim your government is creating. These economic opportunities will go hand in hand with local manufactured goods and better monitoring of fake goods that is coming into our country, and this is not a national issue. Honorable Speaker, to Honorable Premier mentioned in his SOPA speech that at least one person in the household should have a job. Honorable Speaker, the Western Cape government continues to issue licenses to gambling dens and sabines. Your good governance has failed to eradicate illegal sabines. Tourism should reach the poor areas. In this way, the Western Cape government will be motivated to deal effectively with crime and gangsterism. In closing, Honorable Premier, I hope that you take up the challenge and walk the talk in especially fighting crime. I propose that, Honorable Premier, to stop the blame game and that there are accountability and people are taken to task. A balanced and holistic approach to solving challenges must include all and sundry. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Diaga. Honorable Said.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier, Honorable Leader of the Official Opposition, Honorable Members of the House, guests in the gallery, many of whom are dedicated activists in the struggle for learners to attain free quality education without fear. Speaker, as I rise today in this House for my maiden speech, I am mindful of the ordinary heroes and heroines, especially from the youth movement in the Western Cape, who dedicated their lives to fight apartheid and who demanded free but quality education. Speaker, we pay tribute today to the ANC Youth League, especially the generation of Nelson Mandela and Anton Lembede, as well as the League's former leaders in this Western Cape. We appreciate today the efforts and struggles of past generations and the current generation of YCL, COSAS and SASCO activists in the province who champion the struggle for justice in education. More especially, Speaker, I pay tribute to Colleen Williams and Robert Waterwich, whose 30th anniversary of death by the apartheid regime we remember today. But we must acknowledge and appreciate the efforts and sacrifices and dedication of every educator, parent, learner, administrator, and community activist who works towards improving the state of education in our province. As the ANC, we welcome Premier Alan Windy's commitment towards assisting disadvantaged schools throughout the Western Cape. We thank you, Premier. Dare we remind the House, though, that these are often poor colored and African schools in the main, the sufferers of apartheid legacy. Sadly, upon reviewing the record of the previous term, we are not confident that his MEC for Education will make the Premier's general promise a concrete reality. In fact, the track record will compromise the Premier's stated commitment, and we believe in the Premier's commitment. The ANC is committed to employing effective oversight of the Western Cape Education Department. This we will do with various stakeholders on the ground, here in the House, and in our cooperative multi-party Standing Committee of Education, led by our Honourable Chairperson, Lorraine Botha. Speaker, the ANC knows the actual reality of our schools in underprivileged areas, which has hindered learners' right to obtaining free quality education. In demanding a national competency to be devolved to the province, the Premier spoke, and I quote, "a track record of excellence," close quote. Well, Speaker, education and health are provincial competencies, and the track records here have been anything but excellent. 450 learners are still not placed in schools for the current academic year, Speaker. Thousands are yet to be placed at schools for the upcoming 2020 academic year, and no plan exists to address this situation. It is suggested that the manner in which the current electronic enrollment system is implemented now will have detrimental effects on our education system and on the education of the black child. For example, how must the rural and urban poor access this electronic system with no access to the internet? The ANC proposes that all application deadlines for 2020 must be extended to ensure placement of all our learners. Speaker, while learners are struggling to get into schools, the department continues to close down schools in underprivileged areas, as we have just now seen in Grafwater High School in the West Coast. As a result, Speaker, overcrowding is common. At Wallace Dean Primary School, the school governing body and the staff have reached out to the department on numerous occasions for assistance to provide temporary classes and more teachers, but to no avail, Speaker. Another example is that Speaker, there's another example of that throughout the province, Speaker, and I don't want to refer to all those examples. Elsies River is one of them, which Honourable Peter Murray, who has now left the House, will know that no high school has been recently built to meet the increase in population in Elsies River. In Electric City, Speaker, learners with grade 3 must seek admission into schools already at full capacity in the surrounding areas of Delft and Umfoleni. Overcrowding and non-placement does not facilitate free quality education, and in fact, results in increased dropout rates and lowering matric pass rates in poor communities. As we acknowledge the leadership of the Witsan Crisis Committee, Speaker, that are present in the gallery, the ANC welcomes the department's decision to construct a new school in Witsan. However, we wish to bring to the Premier's attention that this decision was only implemented after the community had already placed immense pressure on the officials to assist with the issue. The ANC will monitor the swift implementation of the building of the school in Witsan. The Honourable Premier spoke of 40% of our schools being no-fee schools. The sad reality, Speaker, is that this remains insufficient. We see in KZN there are 75% no-fee schools. Speaker, in this, the most racist province in the country, it is disappointing that the Honourable Premier did not mention the issue of racism in his address. While we know that in the recent past, racism has reared its ugly head at our schools. For example, Speaker, racism remains rife at Swartland High School in Malmesbury. The school denied a learner's application with no reason stipulated, despite her parents being able to afford the 70,000 rand of school fees per year. The learner's father was later told by the secretary of the principal to send the daughter to Skoonspruit High School, a predominantly African and coloured public school in West Bank. To mitigate racist attitudes in admissions to and dismissals from our schools, the ANC believes that a standardized admissions and dismissal policy for all schools needs to be implemented in the Western Cape. The department's refusal, Speaker, for the amalgamation of the Herald and Franken primary schools between George and Uniondale, a mere 600 meters apart from each other, suggests that the department is maintaining racial segregation in our schools. The merger works towards social cohesion, the activities of black farmers in the area, as well as ensure that our public funds are utilized correctly. One of the gravest challenges, Speaker, today is the safety of our learners and teachers in our schools. Promises have been made to provide more fencing to schools in gang-ridden areas. This is simply not enough, Speaker. An average of 2 schools are vandalized and burgled daily in this province, with 42 schools having been attacked in June 2019 alone. The safety of learners, educators, and the infrastructure of our schools, for example, Lavis Primary in Bishop Lavis, has been consistently compromised due to damage caused by criminals as a direct result of the lack of security provisions. Last Monday, parents protested outside Nomama Pingwane Primary School in Mandela Park, Kailicha, after the school was robbed at gunpoint. Representatives of the school have been pleading with the department for CCTV cameras, but these pleas have fallen on deaf ears. We need greater physical and human security resources and better infrastructure, especially at schools which are vulnerable to crime, Speaker, prior to these schools having to ask for the assistance. The ANC calls, therefore, for the reinstatement of community Bambanani volunteers who will act as both the eyes, ears, and as the first line of defense for all security services at schools situated in high-crime areas. Given the urgency of safety of our schools, we are pleased with the Standing Committee of Education's decision to establish a joint standing committee so as to have a multi-pronged approach and propose comprehensive solutions. We thank the Standing Committee for that. Speaker, the ANC remains convinced that the Education Amendment Bill legalizing the sale of alcohol at schools, yes, the sale of alcohol at schools, contradicts a number of policies and programs in other provincial government departments. Selling of alcohol at schools undermines Honourable Community MEC Albert Fritz's fight against the running of shebeens near schools.
Will you please take your seats, sir? Honourable members, please help the Speaker to maintain order. I know that it's a bit exciting, but can I request that we have a right to be excited about whatever news, good or bad. But let us allow the honourable member to proceed unhindered, both sides. Honorable Said.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Thank you very much. The bill passes in direct contradiction to the overwhelming public opposition. It lacks a contextual understanding of how this law will affect the quality of education, safety at our schools, and experiences of violence for learners within poor communities. We will continue to fight this law, Speaker. I want to reaffirm that education remains an apex priority for the African National Congress. We are committed to working tirelessly in a multi-party fashion, in the committee in particular, towards defeating the legacy of apartheid among our youth, with education as the source of hope. We won't agree on everything, Speaker, but there are certain things that we will agree on and work together. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Said. You were within your time. Thank you very much. Honorable Mitchell, you spoke earlier. Please. All right, okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of Education, Honorable Schaefer.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, Premier, members of the Provincial Cabinet and Legislature, special guests. Please note that this is my maiden speech in the new term of office. Last Thursday, Premier Wendy spoke of our vision for this province, which includes values, responsibility and safety, and the commitment to providing our citizens with opportunities. Yet we know that in contrast to this vision, there are still too many people for whom the reality on the ground is not that of a safe society with opportunities for everyone. As education, we suffer with them and are affected daily by societal ills that affect our schools, our teachers and our learners. On average, we've heard already every day 2 schools are being burgled or vandalized. There have been numerous cases of stabbings, and our teachers and learners are severely traumatized when gang violence erupts in and around our schools. Too many of our learners are learning and living in fear. And we have heard about the dire undercapacitation of SAPs in the Western Cape from the Premier. As a result of the political posturing of the National Minister and the constant infighting among the Western Cape top management, whom the Honourable Dugmore wants us to consider for Police Commissioner, who seem more interested in fighting each other than fighting the criminals, we are having to come up with more and more strategies to inspire and protect our people. Robert Ludlum, New York Times bestselling author, says that hope is the only thing stronger than fear. Therefore, we are committed more than ever to providing this traumatized and disheartened youth and broader community with hope for their future. Many of the ills that we are seeing result from a lack of basic values that should be taught at home. In addition, teachers and learners are traumatized as a result of the circumstances in which they live and work, to the point where they cannot see anything positive. Our Transform to Perform strategy involves all learners, teachers, principals, and officials of the WCED, and is about developing a positive mindset that can overcome some of the challenges that we face in our schools and communities every day. Since implementing various aspects of this program for the last year and a half, we have already seen some transformed attitudes within schools, and principals who are committed are reporting a decrease in bullying and ill discipline, and an improvement in team spirit, respect, and learner behavior. The program includes leadership development, a growth mindset program, and values-driven learning within our schools, with schools having been asked to engage in conversations and activities on values, incorporating them into learner lessons, activities, sports and cultural events, and parent and community meetings. This program will continue for this term of office. In order to provide hope to our youth, another thing we need is a school curriculum that can meet their needs and tap into the talents of all learners in this province. And there are many talents, as I saw last night at Settlers High School. In the next 5 years, we are planning to resuscitate the sports school, which unfortunately has not lived up to its potential. Once we have more plans in place, we shall report to this House. We also need to develop 21st century learners with the relevant skills. We now have a formal 3-stream model of education, including an academic pathway, a technical vocational pathway, focusing on much needed technical and artisanal skills, and the technical occupational pathway, such as our schools of skills, focusing on basic practical subjects for employment. We currently have 24 schools offering the technical vocational stream and 26 schools of skills, providing more practical skills such as upholstery, office administration, and hospitality, to name a few. These schools change lives. I've witnessed firsthand how they can change communities' attitudes towards education and decrease learner dropout and apathy. They are giving the learners and their communities hope. Last year, we opened the Jakes Gerwel Technical School in Bonnievale, a community with a high dropout rate in high school and a dispirited youth with little hope of employment. The school was built in collaboration with the Jakes Gerwel Trust and combines academic subjects with technical, vocational, and agricultural, whilst also providing a more technical occupational curriculum in its modern workshops. The no-fee school is inclusive to all and custom designed for the local community to provide the best possible future for those attending. They are also working with businesses in the community to provide some workplace experience during their schooling. This has been made possible through creating legislation for collaboration schools, which the ANC, in fact every other party in this House opposed other than the DA, and the generosity and passion of people in that community. Another school that has also been made possible by this new model in our legislation is the Bottershalter School in Breda River. Not only has the donor helped to build a state-of-the-art school for the farming community, they have also connected nearby schools for the live streaming of lessons synchronized with their lesson timetables. In addition, the schools also received a base set of technology for the teachers with which to project these classes. Our focus is to increase our offerings in this regard, and we have other interested parties in the collaboration schools concept. Our drive to create a more skilled youth does not stop there. The purpose of education is to equip our learners to be productive members of the economy. So it is crucial that what they learn is relevant to the outside world. The Premier has mentioned already that we are expanding from the traditional STEM to STEAMAC, which also includes the arts, agriculture, and coding. The arts incorporates 21st century skills by providing opportunities for creative and critical thinking and a context in which learners are motivated to communicate their ideas, promoting work habits that cultivate curiosity, imagination, creativity, and evaluation skills. This year, we are celebrating and uplifting the arts in our schools, making our Provincial Arts Festival at the end of August and our Provincial Arts Exhibition in September two of the main highlights of the Year of the Learner. Honourable Speaker, agriculture contributes significantly to the economy of the Western Cape. It is therefore imperative that we educate and skill new farmers for the future. In addition, these farmers need to be able to meet the challenges of the 21st century as well as meet the advancements of technology in the field. As a department, we understand the need to diversify this sector as well as prepare our learners with the appropriate skills. For instance, recently, 6 of our agricultural focus schools received state-of-the-art animal handling facilities from the WCED. The automated and computerized facilities include weighing, spraying, dosing, inoculation, and sorting equipment, and introduce learners to modern farming techniques and equipment. Learners are also being exposed to computerized management software for data recording, the use of radio frequency identification technology, and artificial insemination. The same technology is being used by Stellenbosch University and Elsenburg Agricultural College. Learners who will further their studies at these institutions will already have been exposed to this technology in school, while learners who do not study further will be in a very good position to obtain employment on farms and feedlots which use this technology or want to implement it. We are already in discussions with the Department of Agriculture as to how we can create the best opportunities for our learners to become economically active and grow our economy. Mr. Speaker, the skills that are considered most necessary for the 21st century focus on how best to navigate the digital environment. The Western Cape is already leading the country in the rollout of e-learning and the development of digital skills in terms of a national curriculum. The Western Cape has connected over 1,200 schools to the broadband internet, and 412 schools have received wireless broadband over the past 4 years. We have also adopted coding as the final addition to our STEAMAC focus. I'm pleased that the Western Cape is leading the development of the digital skills curriculum at a national level. WCED officials are currently writing a curriculum for the GET band, and the foundation phase curriculum is in draft and awaiting approval. The process to develop the robotics and coding curriculum also began this year. We already have many exciting projects underway in our schools and at this Cape Teaching and Leadership Institute. There are ongoing coding and robotics workshops and courses, digital skills training, and interactive distance learning programs. A pilot using virtual reality technology is currently being implemented in 2 of our schools. There are over 80 coding clubs at schools, which host coding and robotics sessions with learners, and coding collaborations between schools like Klapmuts Primary and Simondium Primary. A coding week for girls in grade 9 to 11 is being hosted by the Metro South District. Learners are also being exposed to other forms of technology, such as the Sun Exchange project at various schools, which is also helping with our quest to make our schools greener and more sustainable in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, and the NASA satellite program at Thornacre High School. The Cape Academy for Maths and Science has a wonderful aeronautical program, and we are also in discussions about creating an aeronautical sciences school. In a nutshell, we want to create an enabling digital environment, integrate ICT into classroom practice, provide digital platforms and resources, and provide learners with learning opportunities that go way beyond the classroom. Underpinning all of what we want to do is excellent teaching and learning and functional schools. This will be
Honourable
enhanced
Minister, you need to wrap up, please.
This will be enhanced by the appointment of our Chief Evaluator for the School Evaluation Authority, which is also being opposed by the ANC, which we are hoping will be done within the next month, and they will then commence their operations and conducting formal assessments at schools. In all we do, we want to give our learners hope, and we will provide hope where the failed ANC government has provided nothing but a failed, captured state that is bankrupt both in finance and ethics. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable the Chief Whip of the Opposition, Honourable Lecker. Order, Honourable Lecker.
Honourable Speaker, Honourable Premier, and honourable members and invited guests in the gallery, I greet you. Today marks 62 days since Premier Winde assumed office and 76 days after the 8th May election. He is still fairly new in the office. Allow me to congratulate Premier Winde on his election as well as on the occasion of his first SOPA. I want to advise you to take heed of Professor Wali Soyinka's words when he says, and I believe, open quotes, and I believe that the best learning process of any kind of craft is just to look at the work of others, close quotes. In order to be successful, you simply have to look back at the good work that the ANC did when it governed the Western Cape. We had the lowest crime rate, lowest unemployment rate, and the fastest growing economy in the country. That is when the Western Cape, with which Madiba was proud of. Do not fall into the trap of repeating Helen Zille's mistake, as your SOPA suggests that you will continue on the downward trajectory when we had highest murder rates, highest number of drug-related crimes, and a declining metric pass. Your success as a premier will be measured on how you turn things around for the better. Your SOPA of last week really did not inspire confidence. It was really not in touch with the reality on the ground. It was not in sync with people's lived experiences. For instance, you bragged here about being proud of the achievements made during the past decade of DA service delivery. If you were to take into consideration the people's lived experiences, your fallacious argument would not stand. For instance, a 10-year girl from Kosovo informal settlements is fighting for her life at Red Cross after she was raped while she went to a communal toilet in the area at night. Even though there were people walking around during the time, they could not see, as it is because there was dark, there is no lightning in the area. The poor service delivery of your government over the past 10 years contributed to the high crime rate in this province. The rape of this girl should be put squarely into the hands of your DA-led government. When we say poverty, unemployment, and inequality needs to be addressed in order to address violent crimes and murders in the area, this is what we mean. It's a pity that only MEC Fritz agrees with us on this one. Your SOPA was very silent on these realities and lived experience of people of the Western Cape. The people of Marikana demonstrated several times in front of this legislature in the past few years. They came to beg for government to keep its promises it made in 2016 to install high mast light, CCTV cameras, better sanitation, and open up of roads for accessibility in Marikana. Your government simply refused to listen to them, and as a result, an innocent person was killed. Comrade Andy Swandevu was killed, and again, we put her death squarely into the DA government's hands. When more deaths are being reported, poor communities like Philippi, Nyanga, Manenberg, Bishop Levis, you will have to accept...
Honorable Chief Whip of the Opposition, will you please take your seat? I would like to request my two honorable members here, Honorable Matigizela and Honorable Maran. It seems you want to have a conversation, maybe for another day or outside. But let us please help the Speaker now and respect the Honorable Chief Whip of the Opposition to continue with your speech, Madam.
Ndiyabulela, Speaker. You will have to accept that it is because your government's refusal to render service delivery to these communities. Given all the above realities, you will stood here grandstanding about how committed you and your government are to build a province where even the poorest of the poor are able to live dignified lives. I must say that was so rich coming from you. The same premier who turned a blind eye when the poor and vulnerable homeless people were targeted and purged by the city of Cape Town through bylaws that seeks to criminalize homelessness. Your government simply has no will and commitment to change the material conditions of the poor and the working class. In the spirit of Professor Soyinka's words when he said, "The man dies in all who keep silent in the face of tyranny." We will not keep silent in the face of these atrocities. Thousands of people died in the Western Cape under the DA rule. Last week, hundreds of people converged in Paarl to find solutions to the problems. Your government knows all the resolutions of the crime summit, yet in your speech, you made no mention of it. All that you told us that you will continue to fight for a provincial police force. This shows you do not take people's life serious. To you and your party, crime remains a politicking matter. Premier, please accept this reality. South Africa is not a federal state. We will not have 11 police forces like in the apartheid days. We will continue to have a single police service. In our cries for more police visibility, let us start engagements about skewed allocations of police resources in the province. Let us call for more resources to be deployed to the Cape Flats where they are needed. Let us call for Metro Police to conduct patrols in areas like Marikana, Nyanga, and Khayelitsha. Play your role in ensuring that we
Order, members. Order, honorable members.
Play your role in ensuring that we have improved service delivery in poor communities. Stop the blame game and complain, take a responsibility and do your job. Premier, our healthcare service is in a terrible state. In our hospital, people sleep on the floors and chairs for days without receiving necessary attention. Amy Simbombo will attest to this because I once put her to task in Eastern Refers Hospital. Community healthcare workers who are the backbone of public healthcare are crying for your help. They are underpaid and work under terrible conditions. We did not hear how you intend to address these. Your plans for clinics...
Order, honorable members. Let us allow the Speaker to proceed, please.
Your plans for the clinics that operate 24 hours is a step in the right direction. But I don't know how it is going to work if you don't have plans to employ more health workers. I was happy to see that you finally agree with the ANC's call for land expropriation. But targeting only national government land shows your intent to politicize the matter. If you are serious about expropriation, start with the land and properties owned by the provincial government. Expropriate pockets of land owned by the city, your government must engage the city to buy the land in Marikana informal settlement, expropriate the golf courses, and the capture of the DA private property developers. Address land theft by farmers in Stellenbosch and surrounding areas. On the eve of our democratic dispensation, these farmers entered into long-term lease agreement with municipalities. They are paying 100 rand a month for many hectares of land, i.e. will be your KWV. You should also know this from your time as agriculture, that KWV leased a signed agreement in 1991 with 60 hectares and only paying 100 rands. Paradise Clough with hectares, 38.1 hectares, and also paying 100 rand as a lease. All these were signed in 1991, and Premier Windy continues to leave this unchallenged, and yet he wants to expropriate government land. If you do all of this, then we will know that you mean business. We are more than ready to punch holes in that clean governance.
Order,
manual
honorable
of yours.
members. Order, please.
Our complaint about your alleged involvement in the unlawful awarding of contracts to McKinsey to develop a strategy for Project Kulisa is getting closer to completion. We are also working around the clock to unearth housing corruption in the Western Cape. So while you may want to continue believing your own misfortunes, misinformation, just know that we know about corruption in your provincial government. People are speaking. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Lecker. All the honorable members. I now recognize honorable members' order. I now recognize Honorable Allen.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, I've noted media comments from the opposition saying that one cannot politic around crime and that the solutions to the epidemic of gang violence in our province requires working across political lines. Sadly, today somehow grandstanding. But having said that, while I agree with this sentiment, it is rather unfortunate that the national government has allowed the state of crime to continue unabated in this province despite the countless cries of innocent people whose lives are affected by violence and criminals roaming our streets. Speaker, the truth of the matter remains that everything under the ANC rule is being run into the ground, including PRASA and the SAPS. The foundation laid by the former Premier Helen Zille is testament to the fact that the DA goes above and beyond to ensure that residents of the Western Cape receive superior services that will lead towards an open opportunity society for all. Despite these efforts, the national government continues to destabilize this province by arrogantly ignoring needs that fall within their mandate.
Honorable Allen, please take your seat, sir.
Honorable Speaker,
Mitchell.
I ask your protection for the speaker on the floor. It is his maiden speech. We have agreed for everyone else when it's their maiden speeches that the convention would be respected. Can you please protect the speaker?
Thank you, Honorable Mitchell. Honorable the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Could we be reminded, we have got no intention to make things difficult for the Honourable Member, but this member joined us last year. In all that time, did he never ever make a speech? Because well, maybe it was Mark Wiley.
All right.
Maybe it was. Sorry.
Honorable Dagmo.
Maybe it was Mark.
That is not a point of order. Okay. I would like to rule that it's not a point of order. Honorable the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A maiden speech is a maiden speech, and the honourable member joined us just weeks before the end of the 5th Parliament. So I think that he didn't have the opportunity, and I would appreciate that the House does give him the opportunity now in order to deliver his maiden speech, as we have afforded other speakers their chance to do so.
I will rule on that now, Honorable Chief Whip. May I, just for the clarity of the House, your time is not running, so it's okay. The honourable member, yes, joined us before the rise of the previous parliament. However, he is now speaking for the first time because he never got to enjoy the privilege. I think let us support him and the principle. May I get the cooperation of the honourable members, please? Thank you very much, honourable members. Honourable Allen.
I thank you. As such, I welcome the establishment of the Premier's Priority Committee on Safety, which aims to oversee all safety stakeholders, including other role players. This approach will ensure that we have a range of programs in place to keep our communities safe. Speaker, it is no coincidence that the Western Cape, the only province not run by the ANC, has the highest shortage of police officers and policing resources compared to other provinces. We need to ask, why are communities in this province treated differently when it comes to policing resources? Why is it that a community such as Nyanga, the murder capital of South Africa, has a ratio of 1 officer to every 628 residents, while the rest of the country has a ratio of 1 officer to every 362 residents?
Order.
While I recognize the many good men and women within the SAPS who put their lives on risk on a daily basis, we cannot ignore the 4 U's, which is that SAPS remain chronically understaffed, under-equipped, under-trained, and under-resourced. This undermines all efforts to keep the residents of the Western Cape safe. And let me continue with the U's, because it is brutally unjustifiable, unacceptable, unconceivable, and it won't go unchallenged. I could potentially go on with the use that it is undemocratic and unpatriotic. Hence, I support the Premier, who is taking further steps in our intergovernmental dispute with the police minister. This is a fight that this government has entered into as a last resort after numerous police ministers paid lip service to the Khayelitsha Commission of Inquiry's finding, which SAPS has failed to fully implement. After the Standing Committee on Community Safety during the 5th Parliament tabled a detailed report on the lack of police resources, and after the Equality Court found unfair discrimination in the allocation of policing resources within the Western Cape. The conviction rate for gang-related murder and attempted murder still stands at a mere 3%. If the ANC was serious about finding solutions to crime, they would join us in fighting for more policing resources, not to cut the national budget by over 6 billion rand. Speaker, the ANC national government has failed in their constitutional obligation to oversee SAPS. We therefore welcome the deployment of the SANDF after 9 years of calling for the SANDF to be deployed. This will act as a temporary measure to supplement SAPS in order for police officers to concentrate on investigating crimes.
Will you please try and wrap up, sir?
I think they stole off my time. Let me cut it short. So I await the report compiled as mentioned by the Premier. I await the report as mentioned by the Premier with regard to the law and policing experts that are looking at the provisions of the Constitution which the Western Cape government will use to increase the provincial government's powers to deal with crime. And in closing, see, I started with you. Let me borrow from the lyrics of Brian McKnight, which said that it's undeniable that we should be together in our fight towards crime. Thank you.
Honorable Allen, thank you very much. I must say that I love that song, but I can't clap. I must be impartial. No, I sang for you when I was on that side. Remember when I was sweeping, I sang. Honorable members, thank you. I now recognize the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our Premier last week set out the main priorities of this government, but he also spent time talking about his vision for the province, the role of government and the role of citizens, and the importance of values in this recipe. And the Premier set out not only his vision and values, but it was also quite clear that the State of the Province address was all about this government rolling up its sleeves and getting down to work. The Premier committed to delivering an open opportunity society for all in the Western Cape. The Open Opportunity Society for All brings together individual freedom under the rule of law, opportunity with responsibility, and equality for all. Our vision is grounded in the idea that every human being has a right to dignity. Human dignity is the foundational concept that informs our values and our vision. The Premier committed this government to transparency and accountability, where ordinary citizens can meet and talk to elected officials directly. In the days of Zondo, accountability is a quality that citizens most want from their political leaders and government institutions. Without a commitment to accountability, governments can easily abuse their powers and compromise the freedoms enshrined in our Constitution. But, Mr. Speaker, there is no better form of accountability than a government that delivers. This government is working hard to expand choice and not determine choice, to encourage each person's independence through more jobs, better education and healthcare, and not simply dependence on the state. As the legislature, we are also getting to work in our oversight role to ensure that the vision and values set out in the SOPA are realized. Because as the DA, whether in the front benches or the back benches, we believe that we should work hard to ensure that every person really does have the right, the space, the freedom, and the opportunity to be themselves, develop themselves, and pursue a life that they value. Unlike those across the bench, Premier Winde wants what's best for this province and not what is best for only the ANC, because those two aims are mutually exclusive. It must be a bitter pill to swallow for the ANC, where the one province that they don't govern comes tops, year after DA year. I'd like to respond to some of the comments made in this debate, starting with Honourable Dugmore, who mentioned the Building a United Front Against Crime event, which was organised by Minister Cele. But the Western Cape government and the Standing Committee chair were only invited 3 days before as an afterthought. Like so many times before when the province was neglected from invitations from the minister. So much for a united front. A recent study by the Department of Community Safety
Order, honourable members.
Noted that 85% of police cases were struck off the court roll because of poor detective training and under-resourcing. But of course, there is no mention of that coming from the opposition, and this is precisely the problem. The ANC has absolutely no interest in making the Western Cape safer, and therefore we will proceed with the dispute because, to quote the man in front of me, Honourable Winde, the time for talk is over. I'd then like to just follow on what Honourable Nkondlo mentioned. She said that Cape Town is the fourth most unequal city according to a UN Habitat study, which had me a little confused because my recollection is a little different. So I went to go and check, and I'd like to read from the Argus, titled Cape Town Least Unequal SA City. A report compiled by the UN has found that Cape Town is actually the most equal city in South Africa. Africa Check reported the findings show that Buffalo City, Joburg and Ekurhuleni are the most unequal South African cities.
Order.
And Cape Town, the least unequal.
Honourable Chief Whip, please take your seat.
Yes, thank you, Speaker.
May I please get your attention, honourable members? Honourable members, this is a debate, so it happens. May we please allow the Chief Whip to proceed? It's a debate. Thank you, Honourable Mackenzie. Honourable Chief Whip.
Thank you. a later study, which
Thank
Africa
you.
Check wrote an article about, shows the
Thank you.
United Nations Human Development Index, Cape Town has the best quality of life of any metro in South Africa. And in fact, 3 DA cities are in the top 4 for top quality of life. Then, Honourable Syed called for the reinstatement of the Bambananis, which is a call we've heard repeatedly in this House in the last term. But we're still struggling to understand how the ANC can explain to this House that if it was so successful, why did the ANC shut it down? Because in this annual performance plan, there's lots said about the Bambananis, and that's 2007, concerns mentioned in this APP, and in this APP, both under ANC MEC's signatures, I can't find it anywhere. Seems to have disappeared from the plans of the ANC government. So perhaps they could explain
Order,
why such a
honourable
successful
members.
program was shut down.
Order. Order, honourable
Also
members.
agree
Order. Honourable members, order, please. Honourable members, I don't want to name you now. Please assist me. I look at you, you must check me, otherwise I'm going to mention you by name as I do. Are you going to help me, honourable members? I'm looking at you, Honourable Pridel. Thank you. Chief Whip.
We also wholeheartedly agree that it would be very important to appoint more people for schools and hospitals. But I'm sure the opposition would also agree that in order to do so requires budget. So instead of bailing out a failing ESCOM yet again, paying for the ANC's failures, if that budget could be diverted to the likes of the Western Cape for service delivery, that money would indeed be put to good use. But in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, the DA Premier and the DA government is the re-government. The re-government of responsibility, the renewal of our commitment to the citizens of this province, reform of government, revitalization of the economy, rebuilding of confidence, and the restoring of faith in values and principles of responsibility and accountability.
Thank you, honourable members. Thank you. Honourable members, thank you very much. I would like to draw the attention of the honourable members that the Premier will respond at 1415 on the 25th, which is this coming Thursday. Ngolwesine, yes. So we must now brace ourselves to hear his side. But what I would like to request from members is that this now, honourable members, I'm going to request that we remain standing for the procession. The House is adjourned. Thank you.